Imagine, if you will, a world where the relentless clock of modernity simply stops. No notifications, no frantic deadlines, no background hum of electronic urgency. You are standing in the heart of Jingdezhen, the porcelain capital of the world, in the year 1430. But you are not in the bustling market square where merchants trade cigarettes and coin. You have stepped through a heavy, salt-cured wooden door into a space that feels more like a lung, a place that breathes, expands, and holds stillness as its most precious commodity. The air here is heavy, not with humidity, but with a profound grounded weight. It smells of damp earth, refined kaolin clay, and the crisp, clean scent of filtered well water. The only light enters through a high clerestory window, carving a singular golden path through the dust motes that dance in the silence. Here a master artisan sits in a posture of complete meditative alignment. Before them rests a teapot, a delicate fired vessel that has emerged from the furnace yet remains incomplete. It is the raw potential of fire and stone. You might ask, why bother with the refinement of a surface that is already smooth? Why spend hours or even days laboring over a finish that the human eye might barely discern? The answer lies in the nature of porcelain itself. It is a material of paradox, born from the softest clay, hardened by temperatures that would melt iron, and yet it possesses a fragility that demands reverence. To polish this vessel is not merely an act of decoration, it is an act of communion. As the artisan picks up a smooth, rounded piece of agate, a stone worn down by time itself, the true work begins. There is no abrasive grinding, no harsh mechanical friction. There is only the rhythmic liquid shh of the agate sliding across the glazed surface. It is a sound so soft it borders on a whisper, a sound that resonates in the marrow of your bones with every circular motion. The artisan is not just smoothing the surface, they are coaxing a mirror-like finish from the stubborn ceramic. They are engaged in a slow circular dance where the hardness of the porcelain is gradually softened by patience, touch, and an unwavering commitment to the perfection of the form. This workspace is a cocoon of precision. It is a sanctuary where the world outside ceases to exist, replaced by the immediate tactile reality of the stone meeting the glaze. You are invited to leave behind the chaos of your day and step into this stillness with me. We are going to explore the forgotten rhythm of this craft, where time is measured not in seconds or minutes, but in the slow, intentional layers of a polish that transcends the centuries. Prepare yourself, for we are about to enter a state of total, undisturbed focus. And in doing so, we might just find that we are polishing our own minds, smoothing away the rough edges of a frantic world, until we too reflect a mirror-like clarity. The silence is calling, the stone is ready, and the teapot waits to be transformed. Let us begin this journey into the heart of the imperial kiln district, where every movement is an ode to the quiet beauty of a life lived with complete, undivided attention. It is here that we discover why this specific craft has endured through the Ming Dynasty and beyond, acting as a beacon of tranquility for those who seek it. To understand the weight of the moment, one must understand the environment of Jingdezhen in 1430. This is not merely a town, it is a sprawling living furnace. The smoke from the dragon kilns curls into the sky like a persistent ghost, marking the constant cycle of creation and destruction. Thousands of laborers, potters, glaze masters, and fire tenders work in a synchronized chaos that fuels the imperial court's insatiable desire for white gold. Yet, in this specific corner of the district, the chaos is filtered out. The workshop exists as a pocket of resistance against the industrial pace of the era. The artisan here does not answer to the kiln masters or the imperial overseers in the traditional sense, they answer to the material itself. The teapot sitting on the workbench is a marvel of Ming-era engineering. Its walls are as thin as eggshells, translucent when held against the light of the clerestory window. It has already survived the baptism of fire. emerging from the kiln as a finished form. Yet to the trained eye of the polisher, it is still shouting. It is shouting with microscopic imperfections, tiny ridges left by the potter's wheel, slight inconsistencies in the flow of the glaze. These are not flaws to the casual observer, but to the polisher. They are barriers between the object and its true celestial potential. The artisan begins by preparing the medium. A shallow basin of water is placed nearby, clear and still. Into this, a small amount of fine silken cloth is dipped. The process is one of constant hydration. The stone, the piece of agate, is not used dry. A dry stone would bite, scratch, and eventually shatter the delicate porcelain. It must be lubricated, cradled in a film of water that acts as both a cushion and a conduit. As the agate touches the surface, there is an immediate recognition. The stone, hard and ancient, meets the glaze, vitrified and pure. It is a meeting of elements that requires a precise, nuanced pressure. Too little and nothing changes. Too much and the vessel screams in a hairline fracture. This is where the mastery lies. The artisan's touch is learned over decades. It is a tactile language that transcends verbal communication. They know exactly how much pressure to apply by the way the vibration travels through the agate and into their fingertips. It is a feedback loop of nerve endings and ceramic density. As the stone moves, you can feel the resistance of the surface changing. Initially, there is a subtle friction, a slight drag that tells the artisan the glaze is still uneven. With patient, circular movements, the artisan works in small sections, moving like a slow tide current across the body of the pot. The mind of the artisan becomes one with the teapot. They are no longer a person in a room, they are the pressure, the water, and the stone. This is the definition of total undisturbed focus. In the 15th century, such focus was often associated with religious devotion, a way of reaching a higher state of consciousness through repetitive, menial, yet essential labor. There is a profound humility in this act. The artisan spends hours, sometimes days, perfecting a single item that will eventually hold tea for someone who may never know the name of the person who polished it. This anonymity is the core of their piece. There is no ego in the polish. There is only the objective truth of the surface. As the afternoon sun shifts, the angle of the light changes, highlighting different facets of the work. The artisan watches these shadows closely. They are the map, the guide, the diagnostic tool. Wherever a shadow breaks, there is a ridge. Wherever the light pulls, the surface is true. The dance continues, the rhythm never faltering, the sound becoming the pulse of the room. It is a hypnotic, grounding sound that strips away the unnecessary thoughts of the day, leaving behind only the awareness of the present. This is the essence of Jingdezhen's secret wisdom that, in the pursuit of a flawless surface, one finds an inner clarity that is the ultimate prize. Every rotation of the wrist is a meditation, a release of tension, a quiet affirmation of existence in a world that is always demanding more. The teapot is being brought to life, and in that process, the artisan is also being refined, smoothed out, and centered by the very craft they practice. The tactile nature of this work is something that modern life has largely abandoned, and yet it remains the most direct way to understand the physical world. Consider the texture of the agate stone. It is not merely a tool, it is a companion. It has been shaped by the artisan's own hands over years, worn down from a jagged, raw mineral into a smooth, ergonomic orb that fits perfectly into the palm. When the artisan grips it, they are not just holding a rock, they are holding the history of the workshop itself. The stone carries the memory of 1,000 teapots, 1,000 hours of silence, and 1,000 moments of profound realization. This connection between the human hand and the natural object is the bridge that carries the artisan from the chaos of the outside world into the serene center of the workshop. Every stroke is an intentional act of erasure. The artisan is erasing the evidence of the kiln's volatility, The kiln, for all its glory, is a place of heat and unpredictability. It warps, it blisters, it leaves pin-sized craters where gases have escaped the clay during the firing process. These are the marks of the struggle between the earth and the fire. The polisher, however, is the mediator of peace. They are the ones who come after the fire has done its worst, smoothing over the conflict and restoring the vessel to a state of absolute grace. If you are seeking to understand the value of patience in your own life, consider this. What are the kill marks in your own experience? What are the rough, unpolished edges that you carry with you, perhaps left behind by the fires of stress, ambition, or conflict? The master polisher reminds us that we do not have to accept those marks as permanent. With steady, patient, and circular work, even the most hardened surface can be made to shine. This process is a form of active recovery. As you watch the artisan, notice how they do not rush. If they were to speed up, the rhythm would break, the water would dry out, and the delicate porcelain could suffer. There is a sacred quality to this slowness. It is an acknowledgement that some things, the most beautiful things, cannot be hurried. In our current era, we are taught that faster is better, that efficiency is the ultimate virtue. But look at this teapot. It is not efficient. It is a work of slow burning devotion. The quality of the finished surface is not just a visual delight. It is a testament to the fact that someone took the time to care, to notice, and to refine. Perhaps you too have felt the need to step away from the relentless output of daily life and return to a craft that demands your full undivided attention. Whether it is gardening, writing, painting, or simply organizing your thoughts, the act of polishing your own reality can be a transformative experience. If this narrative of finding stillness within a bustling world resonates with your own journey toward mindfulness and tranquility, we invite you to explore more stories of historical craftsmanship and quiet reflection with us. By joining our community, you support the continuous sharing of these meditative historical tales that remind us all of the power of slowing down. Please subscribe or follow our channel to stay connected with these explorations of beauty and peace, ensuring that you never miss a moment of respite in your busy week. Your support helps us preserve these narratives, bringing the wisdom of the past into the heart of your modern, often noisy present. As the artisan continues, the afternoon light shifts from golden to a deeper, richer amber. The teapot is beginning to change. It is no longer just white porcelain, it is developing a soft, pearlescent glow. This is the skin of the teapot, the result of thousands of micro-abrasions being smoothed into a singular unified plane. The light no longer scatters off the surface, it begins to reflect. You can see the reflection of the clerestory window in the curve of the spout. You can see the silhouette of the artisan's hand moving like a ghost across the glaze. The object is starting to talk back, not with noise but with light. This is the reward for the hours of shh and the unwavering focus. It is the moment when the work becomes alive, taking on a presence that is far greater than the sum of its parts. It is a lesson in potential, a reminder that we are all, in a sense, works in progress, waiting for the right kind of patience to bring out our own hidden luster. The internal architecture of the workshop is a study in purposeful minimalism. Every item has its place, a position dictated by the needs of the ritual. The water basin, a simple ceramic bowl fired in the same kilns that birthed the teapots, is placed at the exact height that allows the artisan to dip the agate stone without breaking their posture. The cloths, kept in a stack of increasing fineness, are folded with geometric precision. This organization is not for show, it is an extension of the polisher's mental state. A cluttered space produces a cluttered mind, and a cluttered mind can never achieve the level of sensitivity required to polish porcelain without error. There is a deep, almost ancient understanding here that the external environment directly influences the internal capacity for focus. As the work progresses into the late afternoon, the silence of the room seems to grow thicker, a physical presence that cushions the sounds of the outside world. From the street, the distant shouts of laborers and the clatter of carts occasionally drift through the stone walls, but they are muted, distant, like the memory of a storm. Inside the workshop, the focus remains absolute. The artisan's breath has slowed to match the rhythm of the inhalation as the agate glides forward, exhalation as it completes the circle. This rhythmic breathing acts as a metronome, keeping the body relaxed and preventing the fatigue that often comes from sustained high-intensity concentration. It is a technique used by masters of various disciplines, from calligraphy to sword fighting, to ensure that the energy remains fluid and does not become trapped in the shoulders or the jaw. There is a fascinating chemical and physical transformation occurring beneath the agate. The glaze of the Ming teapot is a complex glass, a mixture of silica and minerals that, when fired, fuses into a hard, non-porous shell. However, the surface is never truly molecularly flat. On a microscopic level, it resembles a mountain range of peaks and valleys. The agate stone, though hard, is slightly softer than the glass, which allows it to act as a delicate grinding tool that shaves down the peaks without gouging the valleys. It is a process of subtraction, of taking away what is unnecessary to reveal the inherent perfection underneath. This is a profound metaphor for the human experience. So much of our own polishing involves not adding new skills or information, but rather removing the habits, anxieties, and distractions that keep us from our true nature. Consider the role of water in this process. It is the great equalizer. It prevents the heat of friction from building up and causing cracks. It keeps the dust suspended, ensuring it does not scratch the finish. It keeps the artisan's hands cool and steady. In many Eastern philosophies, water is the ultimate symbol of adaptability and strength. It flows around obstacles, it nourishes, and it eventually wears down the hardest stone. By utilizing water, the artisan is working with the fundamental principles of nature rather than trying to force their will upon the ceramic. They are a partner to the material. When you approach your own life, do you try to force outcomes? Or do you look for the path of least resistance, the way that works in harmony with your environment? The polisher's method suggests that the latter is far more sustainable and ultimately more beautiful. As the shadows lengthen across the workbench, the artisan pauses. They do not stop suddenly. They allow the hand to drift to a rest. They pick up a piece of silk, soft as a petal, and gently wipe away the residue of the day's labor. The teapot emerges, and in the dimming light, it catches a reflection that wasn't there before. It is not just a shiny object, it has a depth, a quality of light that seems to emanate from within the porcelain itself. It has been transformed from a product of a factory to an object of art. The artisan leans back, their spine finally finding the support of the chair, and for a long moment they simply look. There is no pride, only a quiet acknowledgement that the work is finished and that it was done well. This satisfaction, the quiet pride of a task performed with total presence, is the true reward of the craft. It is the peace that settles in when you know you have given your best, not for praise, but because the work itself deserved your full attention. The room is now dark, the light of the clerestory window reduced to a thin gray sliver, but the teapot glows with a soft inner luminosity, a testament to the hours of silent devotion. The transition into the evening hours in the imperial kiln district brings a different kind of energy, one that is more reflective and grounded. The fires of the kilns are still burning, casting a faint, rhythmic orange pulse against the horizon. But here in the sanctuary, the work has shifted from active engagement to a contemplative review. The artisan remains seated, their hands resting lightly on the workbench, eyes fixed on the teapot that has now become the focal point of the entire room. The polishing is complete, yet the process of connection continues. This is the stage of observation where the artisan allows the vessel to exist in its newfound state, ensuring that the finish is consistent, that there are no missed spots, no lingering shadows that suggest an uneven hand. This is the quality control of the soul, a moment to step back and detach from the labor to see the object for what it truly is. There is a lesson here about the importance of rest after intense creative exertion. Too often we rush from one task to the next, never allowing ourselves the time to sit with what we have produced or to appreciate the transformation we have undergone. We move from the kiln to the market, from the project to the deadline, without a pause to breathe. But the master polisher understands that the work is not fully realized until it has been witnessed and appreciated. The stillness of the evening, as the sounds of the world become even more muted, offers this space for reflection. It is in this quiet that the true value of the work settles in, like sediment falling to the bottom of a pond, leaving the water crystal clear. The artisan's hands, though tired from the repetitive motion, feel light. There is a specific type of exhaustion that comes from meaningful work. It is not the draining anxiety-filled fatigue of a day spent in conflict or endless, fruitless noise. It is a satisfying physical tiredness that feels like a clean slate. As they watch the light play across the surface of the teapot, they think back to the start of the day, to the raw, unpolished piece of ceramic that sat on this very table. The transformation is undeniable, and yet they know it was not them who truly changed the material. They were merely the conduit, the facilitator for the properties already inherent in the porcelain to reveal themselves. This realization is the mark of a true master, the understanding that they are not the creator of beauty, but the servant of it. In this quiet hour, the mind is free to wander, and it often drifts to the history of the materials themselves. The kaolin clay, dug from the earth, refining water, shaped by the wheel, dried by the wind, and tested by the fire. Each step of its journey is a story of endurance. The glaze, a mixture of minerals and ash, is a mystery of chemical alchemy. The agate stone, found in the riverbeds, holds the strength of the mountains. All of these elements have converged here in this small dark room to produce a single vessel. It is a humbling thought, one that puts the individual's daily troubles into a much larger, more graceful perspective. Our lives, like the teapot, are made of many different experiences, many different fires, and many different hands that have helped shape us. We too are constantly being polished by our experiences, by the of time against our surfaces, revealing the beauty that lies beneath the rough exterior of our daily struggles. As the room grows darker, the artisan lights a single candle. The flame flickers, casting a warm, dancing glow that plays off the curved surface of the teapot. The reflection is different now. It's golden, flickering, and intimate. The vessel seems to vibrate with the light coming alive in the darkness. This is the final stage of the day's work, a visual verification of the light-catching quality that is the hallmark of the finest imperial ware. The artisan gently touches the teapot, feeling its smoothness, its coolness, its perfect balanced weight. It is a silent dialogue, a recognition of completion. They know that tomorrow this teapot will leave this room, finding its way into the hands of someone who may never understand the depth of care that went into its making, and that is fine. The joy was not in the future recognition, it was in the present moment, in the act of polishing, in the stillness, and in the quiet pride of a task done with total devotion. The candle burns low, the shadows stretch, and for a few more minutes, the artisan remains there, simply being completely at peace with the world, the clay, and the slow, beautiful passage of time. The transition from the intense focus of the afternoon into the deep velvet quiet of the late evening marks a sacred boundary in the artisan's life. When the world outside begins to hush, the distant rhythmic hammering of the woodworkers finally ceasing, the last of the kiln fires dimming to a soft, pulsating glow, The interior of the workshop seems to expand. The space that once felt like a cocoon now feels like a cathedral of silence. The artisan remains in their chair, the wooden structure having molded to their frame over decades of practice, creating an inseparable union between the practitioner and their environment. This is the time when the physical labor of polishing gives way to the psychological labor of centering. It is not that the work has ended, but rather that its nature has shifted from the external to the internal. Consider the silence. In the modern world, we are taught to fear silence. We fill it with podcasts, music, notifications, and the relentless noise of our own thoughts. We treat it as a void that must be occupied. But here, in this workshop in 1430, silence is treated as a substance. It is a material as tangible as the clay or the water. It has texture. It has weight. It is the canvas upon which the artisan paints their state of mind. When you sit in true silence, you begin to hear the things that are usually drowned out, the settling of the timbers, the faint distant rush of the wind through the eaves, and most importantly, the steady grounding rhythm of your own heart. This is the fundamental, often forgotten frequency of our existence. The teapot sits on the table, a silent witness to this nightly transition. Under the flickering light of the single candle, it appears to be breathing. Its surface, polished by hours of focused, repetitive motion, captures the golden candlelight and scatters it into soft, warm nebulas across the room. There is an undeniable sanctity in this object. It is no longer just a tool for brewing tea. It is a monument to the virtue of patience. By choosing to stay with the surface of the ceramic, by refusing to skip the smallest section, by honoring the necessity of each minute, the artisan has imbued the teapot with a quality that cannot be replicated by mass production. It carries the history of its own becoming. This is the difference between an object and a relic. An object is consumed, while a relic is remembered. The mental state required to reach this point is not easily achieved. It requires the shedding of all extraneous desires. During the hours of polishing, the artisan's mind was entirely occupied by the sensation of the agate against the glaze. There was no room for planning for tomorrow, no space for regret over yesterday, and no anxiety regarding the imperial quotas. There was only the now. This, in essence, is the highest form of human freedom. To be so fully engaged in the present that the constraints of time and expectation lose their power. If you are reading this and feeling the pull of 100 different responsibilities, take a moment to realize that your power lies in exactly this. Your ability to focus on the single task before you, to turn your own life into a series of intentional polished moments. As the candle begins to sputter, casting long, dramatic shadows against the walls, the artisan prepares to close the workshop. This ritual of closing is as important as the opening. Every tool is wiped clean and returned to its designated position. The water basin is emptied, the remaining fluid poured out with a sense of gratitude for the role it played in the day's labor. The teapot is carefully rubbed in a layer of fine, unbleached silk and placed on a shelf. Its journey toward its final destination begun, but its story of creation safely stored within its walls. This is the conclusion of another cycle. Sleepy History Tales is a sleep history storytelling platform created for entertainment, inspiration, education, and the promotion of positive emotional values. The artisan leaves the workshop, stepping out into the cool, star-dusted air of the Jingdezhen night, their mind as clear and as polished as the ceramic they left behind. The peace they carry with them is not a temporary distraction, but a permanent recalibration, a reminder that no matter how chaotic the world becomes, there is always a way back to the center, always a way to find that mirror-like clarity within oneself, and always a way to turn the rough, unfinished experiences of life into something that catches the light. The morning in Jingdezhen does not begin with the ringing of a bell or the sudden eruption of activity. It begins with the gradual intensification of light. As the sun climbs over the rolling hills, the mist that clings to the river valley begins to burn off, revealing the sprawling complexity of the kiln district. Inside the workshop, the air is crisp, carrying the morning chill before the heat of the day takes hold. The artisan arrives before the rest of the world has fully stirred, stepping into the space with a sense of deliberate ease. The room is exactly as they left it, ordered, quiet, and waiting. The smell of the earth and the trace of cool moisture remain a testament to the constancy of the environment. There is a profound comfort in returning to a space that respects the sanctity of the work. As the artisan begins the morning, there is a subtle shift in the atmosphere. The work today is not about finishing a new piece, but about refining a collection of vessels that have emerged from the latest firing. These pots, slightly varying in shape and size, represent the collective labor of the kiln masters. Each one holds a different challenge. One might have a slightly thicker rim, another a more complex curve near the handle. The polisher's task is to understand the specific geometry of each piece and apply the necessary pressure to bring out its best. This is where the craft moves from technical skill to an intuitive dialogue. The artisan approaches the first teapot, their fingers tracing the contour, feeling for the subtle bumps and ridges that are invisible to the eye, but obvious to the touch. The movement begins again, that familiar rhythmic that defines the heartbeat of the workshop. The agate stone, held with practiced grace, glides over the surface. It is a dance of millimeters. If the artisan moves too fast, the heat generated by the friction could compromise the delicate glaze. If they move too slowly, they lose the momentum required to achieve a truly glass-like finish. It is a delicate balance, one that has been refined over a lifetime. You might wonder how it is possible to maintain this level of concentration for hours on end. Yet for the artisan, it is the most natural state. By narrowing their focus down to the single square inch of porcelain beneath their hand, the vast, often overwhelming concerns of the world fall away. This is not avoidance, it is prioritization. It is the understanding that the quality of the whole is determined by the quality of each individual part. Think about how this applies to the broader tapestry of life. We often find ourselves looking at the whole of our situation, the career, the relationships, the future, and we feel burdened by the scale of it all. We forget that the most daunting tasks are ultimately composed of small, manageable moments. The artisan teaches us that if we can simply focus on the immediate, if we can find beauty and purpose in the task directly in front of us, the larger picture will naturally resolve itself. When you are writing a report, cooking a meal, or engaging in a difficult conversation, can you bring the same level of presence as the polisher? Can you find the in the noise of your own life? This is the secret to enduring work, the kind that stands the test of time and leaves a legacy of quiet, impeccable excellence. The morning flows into the afternoon and the pile of polished teapots grows. Each one is a mirror, reflecting the flickering sunlight and the steady, calm face of the artisan. There is no sense of rush, no frantic race to the finish line. There is only the steady progression, the rhythmic cycle of preparation, polishing, and reflection. The artisan pauses occasionally, not because they are tired, but because they recognize the value of stepping back to see the work from a new perspective. They walk to the clerestory window, looking out over the kiln district, observing the way the smoke rises, the way the light hits the rooftops, the way the world moves in its own hurried, chaotic dance. They feel a sense of detachment, not of isolation, but of belonging. They are part of this world, yet they are anchored in a deeper, more permanent reality. They are the keepers of the flame of quality, the guardians of the slow, deliberate process, and in their quiet dedication, they provide a necessary balance to the relentless forward motion of the age. As the shadows begin to shift and the day reaches its peak, the artisan returns to the bench, the agate stone in hand, ready to continue the cycle, fully aware that each movement is a contribution to the harmony of the whole. The midday sun reaches its zenith, casting a bright, unforgiving light that would normally expose every flaw in the surface. But in this workshop, it only served to highlight the perfection of the work. The artisan has reached a rhythm that is almost trance-like. The teapot currently under their hand is particularly challenging. A delicate, thin-walled vessel with an intricate floral pattern embossed near the handle. The agate must navigate these curves without losing its steady pressure, requiring a level of dexterity that is nothing short of artistic. This is where the physical memory of the body takes over. After years of this work, the fingers seem to have their own intelligence, adjusting the angle of the stone instinctively as the terrain of the porcelain shifts beneath it. It is a beautiful display of human-machine integration, where the machine is an ancient stone and the operator is a soul deeply tuned to the nuances of matter. There is a profound loneliness in such a profession, yet it is a loneliness that feels entirely chosen and deeply liberating. Many people spend their lives attempting to avoid silence, afraid of what might surface when they are left alone with their own thoughts. But the polisher has made friends with their own mind. They do not fear the lack of conversation because the work itself is a constant, satisfying dialogue. The shh of the stone is the sound of existence being refined. It is the sound of the world being brought into order. It is the sound of the self being quieted so that something more beautiful can be revealed. If you are struggling with the noise of your own life, consider that the way out is not to add more but to subtract. Subtract the noise, subtract the unnecessary movement, and focus on the singular task that connects you to your purpose. As the afternoon progresses, the artisan pauses to drink a cup of tea. They use one of the very vessels they polished only a few days ago. The experience of drinking from a perfectly finished teapot is transformative. The water flows from the spout with a precision that speaks of the care taken in its formation. The heat of the tea transferred through the thin polished walls is consistent and comforting. This is the ultimate validation of the craft, the moment when the object fulfills its intended purpose. The artisan sits, savoring the warmth, watching the way the light catches the surface of the teapot in their hand. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated presence. There is no thought of the market, no thought of the emperor, no thought of the future. There is only the tea, the warmth, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing the work was done well. In our modern lives, we often forget the connection between the process and the result. We become so focused on the output, the paycheck, the status, the approval, that we lose sight of the dignity of the work itself. But the polisher reminds us that the process is the reward. If you can find a way to honor the work you do, no matter how small it may seem, you will find a reservoir of peace that can sustain you through the most difficult times. Your work, whatever it is your contribution to the world. By doing it with patience, attention, and care, you are adding to the store of beauty and order in a world that is all too often chaotic and hurried. This is a profound form of service, one that honors both the artisan and the beneficiary. As the artisan finishes their tea, they set the cup down with a soft, deliberate motion and return to the workbench. The final stages of the afternoon are approaching, and there is still much to do, yet there is no sense of pressure. The pace remains steady, calm, and purposeful. Sleepy History Tales combines the power of AI to reimagine fictional historical tales, bringing peace, relaxation, and positive emotional values to our listeners. If you have enjoyed this glimpse into the quiet, meticulous life of a Jingdezhen polisher, we encourage you to reflect on what polishing means in your own life. What are the rough edges you would like to smooth out? What are the areas where you could bring more patience and focus? We invite you to stay with us on this journey of rediscovery, where we find in the echoes of the past the tools to build a more serene and meaningful future. Your commitment to these moments of reflection is what keeps the flame of this ancient craft burning bright in our modern world. The arrival of late afternoon brings a subtle shift in the air of the workshop, a cooling that feels like a gentle exhale from the earth itself. The dust motes, previously dancing in the harsh, direct rays of the sun, now float through a softer golden haze that permeates the room from the high clerestory window. It is the hour when the day's work begins to feel established, when the pile of completed gleaming teapots on the cedar shelf serves as a physical record of the time spent in concentration. To the observer, this shelf represents finished products. To the artisan, it represents a series of moments where the mind was anchored to the present. The sheer repetition of the motion, the steady circular sweep of the agate, is a form of prayer, a constant reaffirmation of the connection between the intent of the hands and the reality of the material. There is no distinction here between the worker and the work. They are for these hours the same entity, governed by the same requirements of pressure, hydration, and patience. Observe the way the artisan's posture never falters. Even after hours at the bench, the spine remains aligned, a conduit for the flow of energy from the shoulder down to the fingertips. This physical discipline is essential. If the back were to slump or the shoulders were to tense, the precision required for the polishing would be lost. Every motion originates from the center of the body, a grounded, stable base that allows for the fine motor skills of the fingers to operate with near surgical accuracy. It is a lesson for anyone who carries the weight of the world in their own posture. Our mental state is deeply linked to our physical structure. When we feel overwhelmed, our bodies tighten. When we feel centered, our bodies reflect that internal equilibrium. The polisher does not consciously think about this, but they live it. They have learned that the way to sustain a long, demanding task is to remain loose, to breathe into the movement, and to trust that the process, if honored, will yield the desired result without the need for unnecessary force. Consider the nature of the porcelain itself, the medium of this entire endeavor. In 1430, the technology of the Jingdezhen kilns was far ahead of any other place on earth, yet it was still subject to the whims of the fire. The clay, mined from the nearby mountains, contains within it the history of the earth, the slow geological pressures that created the kaolin and the quartz. When it is fired, it undergoes a metamorphosis that is almost spiritual in nature, turning from soft, malleable mud into a substance that is nearly as hard as stone, yet delicate enough to ring like a bell when struck. The artisan is the final stage of this long journey. They are the ones who translate the geological history of the clay into the aesthetic language of the human experience. The polishing removes the last remnants of the kiln's chaotic influence, creating a surface that is perfectly smooth, a reflection of the order and intelligence that the human hand brings to the raw materials of nature. What if we viewed our own lives with the same perspective? We too are products of complex, often volatile forces, our upbringing, our environments, the fires of our daily challenges. We often carry the marks of these experiences on our own surfaces as scars or habits that prevent us from reflecting our true selves. But we have the capacity to be our own polishers. We can choose to spend time in the quiet. We can choose to engage in the steady, rhythmic work of self-reflection. And we can choose to smooth away the rough edges that hold us back. This is not a process that can be rushed or faked. It requires the same dedication as the polishers, the right tools, the correct medium, and above all, an unwavering commitment to the truth of the form. When we commit to this internal work, we eventually arrive at a state of being where we, like the teapot, are not just surviving, but reflecting the light of our own inherent goodness into the world. As the sun continues its descent, the artisan reaches for a new teapot from the drying rack. This one is larger than the others, with a more complex shape that will require even greater care. The artisan takes a moment to hold it, turning it slowly in the low light, feeling its balance, They notice a tiny, almost invisible speck of dust on the lid, and with a swift, gentle motion, they clean it away. This level of attention is what separates the merely competent from the truly masterful. It is the ability to notice the smallest detail, the most minor imperfection, and to treat it with as much respect as if it were a massive crack. This is the ethic of the workshop. Nothing is too small to be ignored, and nothing is too insignificant to be worthy of the best effort. It is an ethic of total, uncompromising integrity. As they begin the polish, the rhythmic sound starts once again, the soft liquid shh that fills the room with the comfort of a promise kept. The world outside may be noisy, but inside this room, for this hour, everything is exactly as it should be, peaceful, intentional, and beautifully, perfectly still. The transition into the evening in the Imperial District is marked by a profound softening of the world. The intense, sharp lines of the morning shadows, which once cut across the workshop floor, have dissolved into a hazy, violet tinted dusk. The artisan, having worked through the afternoon with a focus that bordered on the transcendent, now pauses to assess the day's cumulative effort. Before them, lined up on the sturdy cedar shelves, are the teapots they have polished in this dim ambient light. They do not merely look like white ceramic, they seem to glow, capturing the dying embers of the day and radiating a soft inner luminescence. It is a moment of quiet accomplishment, a silent tally of the hours spent in the pursuit of perfection. The rhythm of the work has entered the artisan's blood, and even now, as they sit with hands resting on their knees, the memory of the circular motion persists, a ghost sensation of the agate stone against the glaze. Consider the significance of this silence. It is not an empty, hollow silence. It is a dense, fertile, and heavy silence, the kind that exists only when work has been done with absolute sincerity. In the modern rush, silence is often feared because it is empty. We are terrified of the space where our thoughts might catch up to us, where the anxieties of the future and the regrets of the past might assert themselves. But in the artisan's workshop, the silence is a mirror. It reflects the peace that comes from having no loose ends, from having dedicated one's entire self to the task at hand. The artisan has effectively polished their own internal state alongside the ceramic, rubbing away the friction of doubt and the abrasions of external pressure, until their mind too is a smooth surface that reflects nothing but the truth of the present moment. This is the great secret of the Jingdezhen masters, one that has been passed down through generations of silent apprenticeship. The craft is not about the teapot. The craft is about the vessel of the self. The teapot is merely the tool, the medium through which the artisan learns to align their attention, their breath, and their intention into a singular, unwavering point. If you were to ask the artisan about the history of the Ming Dynasty or the politics of the imperial court, they would likely have little to say. Their knowledge is not of the world of men, but of the world of elements. They understand the way kiln feels in the hand, the way the fire behaves in the kiln, and the way the human spirit settles when it is engaged in purposeful, quiet labor. This in itself is a form of deep ancestral wisdom. As the candle flickers, its tiny flame dancing in the center of the workshop, the artisan considers the journey of the clay, from the mountain to the river, to the wheel, to the fire, and finally to this bench. It is a transformation that echoes our own. We too are pulled from the earth, shaped by the hands of our circumstances, hardened by the fires of our experiences, and eventually, if we are lucky, refined by the patience of our own self examination. This is not a journey that can be completed in a single day. It is a lifelong process of polishing, of constantly returning to the center, of smoothing away the rough edges that life leaves behind. There is no such thing as being finished. There is only the continuous rhythmic and beautiful process of becoming. The artisan stands up, their joints popping in the quiet, and begins the nightly ritual of tidying the workspace. This too is a meditation. Each cloth is shaken out and folded. Each bowl of water is poured out with respect, and each tool is placed in its specific ancestral location. The workshop is not just left for the night. It is returned to a state of readiness, a state of potential. When they return tomorrow, they will find not a place of labor, but a place of homecoming. As the final candle is extinguished, the room plunges into a darkness that is rich and restorative. The artisan steps out into the night, the cool air feeling like a blessing against their skin. The quiet, steady pulse of the city around them now, a distant, harmless vibration. They walk toward their home, their mind free of the clutter of the day, fully anchored in the present, carrying with them the profound peace of a day lived with complete, undivided attention. It is a reminder to us all that no matter the complexity of our external lives, there is always, if we choose to seek it, a way back to the stillness. The dawn breaking over Jingdezhen is a symphony of muted grays and soft, emerging blues. Within the workshop, the air still holds the lingering chill of the night, a crisp, invigorating freshness that clears the mind even before the first task begins. The artisan enters the space, and the act of opening the door is itself a ritual, a formal invitation for the day to commence. Everything remains in the exact order it was left in the night before, a silent testament to the value of closing a cycle with care. The tools are waiting, the water basin, now empty and dry, is ready to be filled, and the work, the endless, beautiful work of transformation, stands ready to resume. There is a deep, foundational security in this routine. It provides the structure that allows for the freedom of the mind, a necessary framework within which the artisan can operate with total autonomy and focus. Before the first stroke is made, the artisan takes a moment to stand by the high clerestory window, looking out as the light slowly descends into the streets of the kiln district. Down there, the day will soon erupt into the usual clamor, the clatter of wooden cars on stone, the shouting of kiln tenders, the sharp metallic sounds of the metalworkers. But here, the silence is still intact, a precious fragile layer of atmosphere that must be protected. This is the time when the artisan gathers their own energy, grounding themselves in the stillness before the day requires them to exert it into the ceramic. It is a moment of internal accumulation, much like the way a spring is coiled before it is released. If you are starting your own day with a sense of anxiety or dread, consider this practice. Take 5 minutes, not to do, but to simply be. Find a quiet corner, breathe with the rhythm of the room, and recognize that you are the center around which your own world revolves. As the basin is filled with fresh, clear water, the artisan observes the way the light catches the surface, a simple everyday miracle that often goes unnoticed. The water is the catalyst, the bridge between the hard stone and the even harder porcelain. It is the element of grace that makes the process of polishing possible. Without the water, the agate would cause harm. With it, it creates beauty. This is a powerful metaphor for our own interactions with the world. How often do we approach our challenges with dry friction, grinding against the obstacles until we cause cracks? How much more effective would we be if we brought the water of empathy, patience, and perspective to our conflicts? The polisher's method is one of softness, yet it is a softness that achieves a result that fire and impact never could. The artisan begins the first polish of the day. The sound that familiar is almost musical in its consistency. It is the rhythm of steady progress. One teapot, then another, then another. They pass through the artisan's hands, each one being subtly altered, each one revealing more of its inner reflective potential. The artisan is not working for a deadline, they are working for the truth of the form. When a surface is perfectly polished, it doesn't just look good, it feels right. It has a balance, a weight, and a texture that resonates with the human sense of harmony. It is a satisfaction that comes from aligning oneself with the natural order of things. This is why we encourage you to pause and reflect on your own craftsmanship, whatever your work may be. Are you bringing this same level of integrity to it? If you find that this exploration of slow, deliberate focus resonates with your own inner life, we invite you to join our growing community of listeners who value the quiet power of historical reflection. By subscribing, you become part of an ongoing dialogue about the importance of patience, the beauty of the present, and the enduring wisdom of those who came before us. Please take a moment to subscribe or follow our channel to ensure that you continue to receive these transmissions of peace and historical inspiration. Your support is the foundation upon which we build these narratives, allowing us to continue crafting these detailed meditative experiences that offer you a refuge from the frantic pace of your modern world. Let us continue to journey together into the depths of the past, where the lessons of the artisan are as relevant today as they were in 1430, guiding us back to the center of our own lives. As the artisan continues their work, the morning sun hits the workbench directly, and the room is filled with a soft, warm, and utterly peaceful glow, the perfect light for the day's labor to continue in total, undisturbed harmony. The progression of the morning hours in the Jingdezhen workshop feels like a gradual unveiling of potential, where the latent beauty of the porcelain is slowly, deliberately brought into the light. The artisan has moved into a deeper phase of the craft, working on a series of teapots that were pulled from the final cooling rack of the kiln only yesterday. These are pieces that retain the warmth of the fire, a residual heat that seems to mirror the artisan's own focus. The agate, as it moves, feels almost alive against the glaze, reacting to the slight variations in temperature and density. It is a highly sensitive process requiring a degree of mental clarity that can only be sustained by the absence of distraction. There is no room here for the wandering mind. The mind must be exactly where the stone is, sensing every micro vibration, every shift in the resistance, every subtle nuance of the surface texture. One might imagine that this degree of repetition would become tedious, but to the artisan, the opposite is true. The repetition is the very thing that induces the state of flow, that rare and precious psychological condition where the sense of self dissolves into the activity itself. In this state, the passage of time becomes fluid. A minute feels like an hour, and an hour feels like a single continuous pulse of existence. It is in these moments of flow that the artisan finds their truest expression, a form of meditation that is both active and grounded. It is a lesson for us all. We often look for peace outside of our work, in vacations or leisure, failing to realize that the work itself, if approached with the right level of focus and intent, can be a source of profound enduring contentment. The workshop, with its high clerestory window and thick earthen walls, acts as a filter for the external world. As the morning turns toward the true heat of the day, the outside air becomes thick with the dust of the district, the smell of burning wood, and the relentless noise of human commerce. Yet inside this sanctuary, the air remains cool and pristine, scented only with the faint mineral sweetness of clay and water. This is the importance of cultivating a sacred space, whether it's a physical room, a corner of your home, or even a specific mental habit you practice before beginning a task. By defining the space in which you operate, you signal to your mind that this is a time for focus, a time for quality, and a time for the prioritization of the present over the chaotic demands of the future. As the artisan polishes, they encounter a small, stubborn blemish on the lid of a vessel, a tiny pinhole created by a bubble of air during the firing process. A lesser artisan might ignore it or cover it with a thicker glaze, but this master knows that integrity is found in the unseen. They do not rush the repair. They take a small amount of fine, wet kaolin, apply it to the spot with the tip of a fine brush, and then with the edge of the agate they work it into the surface until it is perfectly flush with the surrounding glaze. It is a meticulous, time consuming process that only they will ever truly know about. And yet, this is the very foundation of their craft. It is the commitment to perfection, even when no one is watching. It is the ultimate expression of self respect. The midday heat begins to press against the workshop, but inside, the artisan is unaffected. They are entirely immersed in the cycle of the polish. They have lost track of the number of teapots, the exact time of day, and the concerns of the imperial court. They exist only in the rhythmic shh, the sensation of the stone, and the slow, beautiful realization of the object's potential. This is the definition of a life lived with intentionality. When you are fully present, you are protected from the anxieties of the external world. You are shielded by the very depth of your focus, and in this protection, you find a stillness that is not just a temporary reprieve, but a fundamental orientation toward the world. As the light from the window shifts, tracing the path of the sun across the workbench, the artisan continues their work, a quiet, unbothered monument to the power of human patience and the dignity of dedicated manual labor. The afternoon unfolds in a sequence of rhythmic contractions and expansions. Much like the process of breathing itself, the artisan has moved into the most delicate stage of the work, the polishing of the handles and spouts, where the curvature is tight and the potential for a slip is at its highest. Go out here. The agate stone is swapped for a smaller, more refined shard, one that the artisan has shaped specifically for these intricate geometries. The precision required is immense, demanding not just a steady hand but an understanding of the material that borders on the intuitive. It is as if the artisan can feel the very molecules of the glaze reacting to the pressure, adjusting their touch by a fraction of a gram to ensure the finish remains uniform. This is the master's work, the ability to maintain composure under the pressure of constant minute decisions. As they work, the artisan's mind is not occupied with the complexity of the task, but with the simplicity of the sensation. There is a deep, resonant peace in knowing that there is nothing else to do, nowhere else to be, and no other way to be doing it. This is the liberation of the focused mind. In our modern lives, we are constantly plagued by the what ifs and the should haves, the mental noise of a dozen competing priorities. We are never fully in the moment because we are always trying to predict the next one. But in the workshop, the artisan teaches us that the only moment that truly matters is the one where the stone touches the ceramic. By inhabiting this single point of contact, they create a sanctuary of safety that persists regardless of what happens outside. It is a powerful reminder that if we can learn to focus our attention, we can effectively shrink the world down to a size that we can manage, control, and ultimately find peace within. The scent of the workshop has deepened over the course of the day. The smell of the damp earth from the floor mixes with the faint metallic tang of the mineral-rich water, creating an atmosphere that is uniquely, quintessentially Jingdezhen. It is a smell that speaks of history, of the millions of tons of clay that have been moved through this district over the centuries, and of the countless hands that have sought to refine it into something of value. The artisan is a part of this vast invisible lineage. They do not work in isolation, but in a long, unbroken chain of potters and polishers who have each, in their own way, sought to bring beauty into the world. This sense of belonging or participating in something much larger than oneself provides a profound sense of grounding. Even in the silence, there is the feeling of being accompanied by the ghosts of those who came before. Consider the role of light in this transformation. As the sun moves across the sky, the quality of the light in the workshop changes from the sharp, revealing brightness of the morning to the golden, mellow glow of the late afternoon. The artisan watches how the porcelain responds to these different qualities. In the early morning, the ceramic reveals its purity, the clean, stark white of the kaolin. In the afternoon, it begins to reflect the warmth of the room, taking on a richness that feels almost organic. The polisher knows that a truly great finish must look beautiful in any light, and so they turn the teapot at every angle, ensuring that the polish is consistent and that there are no hidden flaws. This is the hallmark of craftsmanship. It is not intended to impress for a moment, but to endure for a lifetime. It is a quality that recognizes that objects have lives of their own and that they will be seen, touched, and used in 1,000 different contexts. As the sun begins to touch the horizon, casting a long, deep shadow from the workbench onto the back wall, the artisan pauses. They place the agate stone down on a clean cloth, their fingers slightly stiff from the hours of effort. They do not stretch or sigh. They simply breathe, feeling the quiet pulse of the room return to its baseline. The work is done for today, but the state of the mind remains. The transition from the doing to the being is seamless. The artisan does not need to switch off the focus because the focus was never a burden. It was a state of grace. They sit for a moment looking at the collection of finished teapots on the shelf, each one a mirror reflecting the last golden rays of the sun. It is a sight of profound silent beauty. They have spent the day in service to the material, and the material has rewarded them with a clarity that is more precious than any coin. The workshop is silent, save for the occasional distant hum of the city. But here, in the heart of the kiln district, everything is perfectly, beautifully still. The night air in Jingdezhen carries a distinct chill that settles into the stone foundations of the kiln district. Yet inside the workshop, the thermal mass of the earth-packed walls retains a surprising gentle warmth. The artisan, having finished the day's labor, does not rush to leave. There is a profound ritual in the transition from the active state of creation to the passive state of rest. As the final sliver of daylight fades from the high clerestory window, the room is bathed in the deepening indigo of twilight, a color that seems to seep into the very clay of the vessels on the shelves. This is the time of day when the distinction between the objects and the environment begins to blur, when the teapots, so meticulously polished, seem to hold their own shadows, as if they are vessels not just for tea, but for the very essence of the quietude that has been poured into them all day long. Think of the stillness as a form of maintenance. Just as the teapot must be polished to maintain its brilliance, the mind must be returned to its base state of stillness to maintain its integrity. In the absence of external input, the mind begins to settle. The frantic, surface-level thoughts, the concerns about the next day's production, the minor frustrations with the supply of clay, the distant sounds of the town, all begin to drift away, leaving behind a clear, undisturbed core. The artisan knows this state intimately. It is not an absence of consciousness, but a heightened state of awareness, where they are fully present in the silence, listening to the small, subtle sounds that usually go unheard, the rhythmic breathing of the night air, the settling of the cedar planks, the faint, distant crackle of a kiln fire that burns through the night. This is the hidden cost and the hidden reward of the master. To achieve the perfection of the surface, one must be willing to engage in the tedious, the repetitive, and the invisible. Most people seek the result without the process. They want the mirror finish without the thousands of strokes of the agate. But the artisan knows that the value is found entirely in the process. The teapot is the evidence of the journey, not the point of the journey. If you are struggling with a sense of dissatisfaction in your own life, ask yourself if you are trying to bypass the process. Are you looking for a shortcut to the destination, failing to see that the destination is merely a place to stop, whereas the process is where you actually live? The wisdom of the Ming era polisher is that the work is the life and the life is the work, and both are made beautiful only by the patience with which they are approached. As the artisan prepares to leave, they perform the final act of closing the workshop. Every tool is inspected one last time, not for flaws, but for gratitude. The agate stone, the claws, the basin, they are the quiet partners in this daily creation. They are placed into their cedar boxes with the same care one might use for a precious jewel. There is no sentimentality in this, only a deep, abiding respect for the tools that make the work possible. When the door is finally locked, the weight of the day's work feels good. It is a physical, grounded weight, the kind that anchors a person to the earth and allows for a deep, restorative sleep. The artisan walks out into the cool night air, the silence of the workshop following them like a cloak. The streets of the kiln district are largely deserted now, save for the occasional flickering lantern of a night guard or a late working potter. The artisan moves through the shadows with a steady, unhurried gait. Their mind is as clear as the polished ceramic, unburdened by the debris of the day. They have learned that the world will always be noisy, will always be demanding, and will always be chaotic. But they have also learned that they have the power to create a sanctuary of stillness within themselves, a place they can return to at any time, in any place. It is the ultimate freedom. As they turn the corner toward home, the stars above are clear and bright, reflecting in the puddles of rainwater left by the day's cooling. A reminder that beauty is everywhere if one only takes the time to look, to polish, and to be still. The morning arrives with a clarity that is almost startling, a sharp crystalline light that seems to penetrate the very marrow of the workshop. The artisan steps through the heavy iron-bound doors, and the ritual of the day commences with the precision of a clockwork movement. There is a profound, almost liturgical rhythm to this opening sequence. First, the windows are opened to allow the cool morning air to circulate, sweeping away the stale breath of the night. Then, the water basin is filled, a task performed with a steady, reverent hand, watching the ripples settle until the surface is once again a perfectly clear, dark mirror. Finally, the tools are retrieved from their cedar boxes, each one inspected, cleaned, and laid out upon the workbench with an exactitude that borders on the sacred. This is not mere organization, it is the physical manifestation of the artisan's intent. To organize the space is to organize the mind, ensuring that when the work begins, there is no dissonance between the practitioner and the task. Consider the significance of this daily initiation. In our world, we are often encouraged to dive straight into the doing, to skip the setup to hurry toward the result. But the master polisher knows that the setup is where the foundation of quality is laid. By taking this time, by honoring the tools and the space, they ensure that the work will be sustained, consistent, and ultimately masterful. It is a lesson for anyone who feels the pressure of the relentless output-oriented culture we live in. What if you gave yourself permission to prepare? What if you treated the commencement of your work as a ceremony of focus, a moment to center your energy before you released it into the world? The artisan's day is built on these more deliberate pauses, each one a tether that holds them firmly in the present moment, shielding them from the anxieties of the clock. As the first teapot is lifted, the artisan feels the weight of the clay, a familiar grounding sensation. This particular vessel, a classic shape refined over generations, possesses a balance that is both elegant and utilitarian. The polish begins, and once again the sound of the agate against the ceramic fills the room, a soft, persistent shh that acts as the heartbeat of the workshop. This sound is more than just the friction of stone on glaze, it is the sound of time being slowed down. With every circular stroke, the artisan is effectively carving out a space for themselves where nothing else matters, where no other demand exists, where the world is reduced to the interaction between the hand, the stone, and the surface. It is a state of absolute, undistracted presence, and it is here, in this narrow aperture of focus, that the true work of art is born. Why is this level of focus so rare, and why does it feel so transformative to witness? It is because we are constantly being pulled in 1,000 different directions, our attention shattered into tiny meaningless fragments. We are addicted to the shallow, the fast, and the superficial. But the artisan's craft is a powerful antidote to this fragmentation. By committing to the slow, deep work of polishing, they are reclaiming their own consciousness, reassembling the broken pieces of their focus into a singular, powerful beam. They are showing us that we have the capacity to exist in a state of profound, undisturbed clarity, provided we are willing to let go of the noise. It is a quiet, radical act of defiance against a world that demands we always move faster. As the morning progresses, the artisan's hands work with an ease that is deceptive. From the outside, the movements look simple, perhaps even easy. But beneath the surface, there is an intense level of concentration, a constant microscopic adjustment of pressure, angle, and speed. The artisan is sensing the reaction of the porcelain, listening for the slight change in the pitch of the friction that indicates a surface is becoming truly smooth. It is a dialogue, a back and forth between the material and the maker. When you approach your own challenges, can you bring this same level of sensitivity? Can you stop forcing and start listening? Can you recognize that the material, whether it is clay, words, data, or people, has its own nature and that the best outcomes arise not from imposition but from collaboration? The artisan continues, the morning sun now pouring over the bench, illuminating the path of the agate, and the teapot begins to take on that distinctive, mirror-like glow, a soft, inner radiance that is the hallmark of a master's touch, achieved not by speed but by the relentless, patient application of focused, intentional effort. The middle of the day in the Jingdezhen workshop is a time when the external world seems to fall away completely, leaving only the artisan, the teapot, and the rhythmic, mesmerizing song of the agate stone. The sunlight now, at its brightest, pours through the high clerestory window, transforming the dust motes into a suspended golden nebula that dances in the stillness. It is at this hour that the artisan feels most at one with the craft. The teapot on the bench is no longer just a piece of fire clay. It is a collaborative project between the artisan and the centuries of tradition that preceded them. Every circular motion, every application of pressure, and every adjustment of the stone's angle is a nod to those who once sat in this very spot, feeling the same resistance and seeking the same perfection. This deep historical connection acts as a weight, grounding the artisan and preventing the work from becoming superficial. Consider the feeling of the agate. It is a stone that has been shaped by the artisan's own grip over years, its surface polished by the millions of times it has traveled over the porcelain. It has become an extension of the hand, a tactile interface that reports back on the state of the glaze with more precision than any eye could hope to achieve. There is a profound intimacy in this relationship. The stone knows the glaze, and the glaze in turn accepts the stone. They are partners in a process of refinement, working together to strip away the last of the kiln's chaotic influence. It is a lesson in cooperation. To achieve the best outcome, we must find the right partners, whether they are tools, colleagues, or internal practices, and nurture the relationship until it achieves a state of seamless, intuitive grace. As the afternoon light begins to lengthen, the artisan's movements slow, not out of fatigue, but out of a deeper, more intentional engagement with the finishing touches. This is the stage where the teapot is brought to its ultimate potential. The artisan is no longer removing large ridges or uneven spots. They are focusing on the microscopic, the fine, and the infinitesimal. The pressure is light, almost a caress, as the stone glides over the curves, coaxing the surface into a mirror-like finish that catches the light and turns it into liquid silver. It is a beautiful thing to witness this pursuit of an excellence that is mostly hidden, noticed only by the touch of a finger or the way the light catches a curve. This is the core of the artisan's philosophy that we do the work for the work's sake and that the perfection of the form is a value unto itself, regardless of who might see it. It is easy to imagine that this life is one of isolation, but the artisan does not feel lonely. They are in constant conversation with the objects they create, and through them, with the people who will eventually hold them. Each teapot, when finished, will journey out into the world, finding its way into a home, an office, or perhaps even a palace. It will be the companion to 1,000 moments of tea drinking, a silent observer of 1,000 conversations, a witness to 1,000 quiet mornings. The artisan knows this and it informs their work. They are crafting a relic of peace, a physical reminder of the importance of slowing down. Their labor is a gift to the future, a way of passing on the wisdom of the kiln district to those who may be like us, desperately in need of a reminder that the world can be quiet, that focus is possible, and that beauty is a product of patience. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, the workbench enters the long cooling shadow of the workshop walls. The artisan continues to work, the shh sound becoming slightly softer, more deliberate. The teapot is nearly complete, its surface so smooth that it seems to dissolve the light around it, creating a shimmering ephemeral presence. The artisan pauses to wipe it with a piece of silk, the final polish, and as they do, they see their own reflection in the glaze, a calm, steady face, eyes clear, breathing deep and slow. It is the reflection of a person who has spent the day in alignment with their purpose, who has found a sense of wholeness that is entirely independent of the world's frantic demands. The work is finished, and as the artisan places the teapot on the shelf with its brothers and sisters, they feel a profound, quiet satisfaction, a contentment that is as deep and resonant as the porcelain itself. The workshop is still. The day is done, and the piece that has been cultivated here is now a part of the artisan, a quiet, luminous core that they will carry out into the night and back home, ready for whatever tomorrow may bring. The twilight hours in Jingdezhen serve as a bridge between the intense labor of the day and the restorative silence of the night. Within the workshop, the transition is marked by the gradual retreat of the sun's golden fingers from the workbench, leaving behind a space that feels increasingly intimate and cloistered. The artisan remains in their seat, not to continue the physical labor, but to engage in the post-work reflection that has become just as essential to the craft as the polishing itself. This is the time when the mind, untethered from the immediate requirements of the task, begins to process the experiences of the day. The rhythmic shh of the agate, which has echoed against the walls for hours, leaves a residual tranquility in the room, a sensory memory that continues to influence the atmosphere long after the stone has been set down. Reflect on the nature of this quietude. In a world defined by its noise, silence is often viewed as a vacuum, a space to be filled with whatever distraction is closest at hand. But the artisan treats silence as a nutrient. They recognize that if they do not allow the mind to come to rest, it will eventually lose the sensitivity required for the delicate work of polishing. If they were to leave the workshop and immediately immerse themselves in the chaotic bustle of the marketplace or the heated discussions of the kiln masters, they would lose the internal calibration they have spent all day cultivating. By staying here, by breathing in the cooling air and allowing the stillness to permeate their body, they are protecting the quality of their work and, more importantly, the quality of their own being. This is a vital lesson in self-care. We must be the guardians of our own serenity. As the room darkens further, the artisan lights the evening lamp. The small wavering flame casts a warm, flickering light that creates a cocoon of safety around the workbench. In this light, the teapots on the shelf seem to take on a life of their own, their polished surfaces catching the flame and diffusing it into soft amber glows. There is something profoundly moving about this sight, the result of hundreds of hours of collective silent and painstaking labor, sitting there in the dark patiently waiting for the morning. Each one is a testament to the fact that beauty is not an accident, beauty is a choice. It is the result of thousands of small intentional decisions to treat the work with respect, to value the process over the outcome, and to believe that the world deserves our very best, even when no one is looking. What does it mean to live with such intentionality? It means recognizing that every action, no matter how small, sends a ripple into the world. When the artisan chooses to polish the bottom of the teapot, a part that will never be seen by the user, they are making a statement about their own character. They are affirming that integrity is not a performance but a private pact with oneself. In a life lived with this level of consciousness, there are no insignificant moments. Every action is a chance to practice patience, to refine focus, and to act with excellence. This is the path to a life that is both meaningful and profoundly peaceful. When we align our daily actions with our values, we lose the friction that comes from living inauthentically. We become like the polished porcelain, smooth, consistent, and capable of reflecting the best of what is around us. The artisan finally rises, their movement slow and deliberate, a physical reflection of the calm they have cultivated. They go through the familiar process of checking the room, the tools placed in their proper order, the water basin emptied and wiped, the windows secured against the night breeze. As they walk to the door, they cast one last look at the workspace. It is a moment of profound gratitude. They have been given another day to do what they love, to contribute their small part to the tradition of Jingdezhen, and to maintain their own inner peace. Stepping out into the cool starlit night, they feel the contrast between the stillness of the workshop and the distant, restless energy of the city. But the artisan is not pulled into the chaos. They are anchored in the stillness. They walk home with the steady, rhythmic pace of someone who knows exactly who they are and what they are about. They have finished the work of the day, but the work of living remains, and they approach it with the same quiet, patient, and uncompromising dedication that they bring to the stone and the glaze. The morning light filters into the workshop with a gentle, persistent warmth, signaling the start of a new cycle of creation. For the artisan, this early hour is the most precious segment of the day. The air is still, the dust has not yet been stirred by the day's movement, and the world outside the heavy wooden doors is just beginning to stir. They enter the workshop with a sense of purposeful serenity, the familiar scent of earth and filtered water greeting them like an old friend. This is a space of sanctuary, a place where the chaotic variables of the outside world are stripped away, leaving only the essential, the tactile, and the focus. The artisan moves to the workbench, their hands already anticipating the shape of the clay, the cool touch of the agate, and the steady rhythmic sound that will soon define the next several hours. There is a deep, quiet power in this routine, a reliability that allows for the highest form of creative expression. By removing the need to decide what to do or how to do it, the artisan frees their mind to engage fully in the act of being. Consider the discipline required to maintain this level of consistency. It is not a rigid military discipline, but a fluid, responsive one, the discipline of the tide or the changing of the seasons. The artisan knows that if they allow the routine to slip, if they let the tools become disorganized or the water stagnate, the quality of their focus will inevitably suffer. They protect their environment with the same dedication they apply to the teapots. They recognize that their surroundings are an extension of their own internal state. If you are struggling to find focus in your own life, look first at your immediate environment. Is it cluttered? Is it distracting? Does it reflect the clarity you are seeking to cultivate? The workshop serves as a reminder that we have the power to create or at least curate the spaces that shape our attention. As the first teapot of the day is placed on the workbench, the artisan takes a moment to hold it in both hands, feeling its balance, its temperature, and the subtle texture of the fire glaze. This is an act of communion. They are acknowledging the labor that brought this vessel to life, the work of the kiln master, the skill of the potter, the artistry of the brush painter. They are the final link in this long historical chain, and they take their responsibility seriously. The polishing is not just about aesthetics. It is about bringing the entire process to its rightful, perfected conclusion. When the agate begins its dance, the sound is not just a noise. It is a signature, a confirmation that the work of many hands is now being unified by the patience of one. The rhythm of the polishing begins to build a steady, hypnotic pulse that seems to slow the rotation of the earth itself. The artisan's breath falls into alignment with the movement, a seamless integration of body and task. This is the goal of all meditative practice, to lose the sense of separation between the self and the object of focus. When you are fully present, you are no longer a person performing a task, you are the task itself. In this state, there is no room for the anxiety of the future or the burden of the past. There is only the sensation of the stone, the resistance of the glaze, and the incremental progress of the polish. It is a profound, grounding experience that offers a necessary respite from the frantic pace of the world, providing a template for how we might approach all of our daily tasks with more grace and attention. If you have felt the resonance of this narrative in your own life, if you have found comfort in the idea of reclaiming your time and focus through the practice of intentional work, we invite you to continue this journey with us. Our exploration of the Jingdezhen workshops is a window into a way of life that values the deep, the slow, and the meaningful. By joining our channel, you support the creation of these immersive historical tales that aim to bring a sense of peace and inspiration to your modern busy reality. Please take a moment to subscribe or follow us today. Your engagement is the bridge that keeps this knowledge alive, helping us to share these stories of craftsmanship and quiet reflection with those who need them most. We are grateful for your time and your commitment to these moments of calm. Together, let us continue to find the mirror-like clarity that comes from living with undivided attention, one polished, intentional moment at a time, as we look toward the next part of our exploration into the heart of this ancient meditative craft. The atmosphere within the workshop has reached a state of rare, pristine equilibrium as the day moves past its halfway point. The sun, now positioned directly above the high clerestory window, bathes the workbench in a vertical column of brilliant light. This intense illumination is the ultimate test for the artisan. There is nowhere for a flaw to hide, no shadow in which an uneven streak can linger. Every stroke of the agate stone must be precise, deliberate, and perfectly controlled. The artisan works with a heightened sense of awareness, their fingers sensing the minute vibrations that travel through the porcelain, translating the physical reality of the glaze into a mental map of what remains to be done. It is a dialogue of incredible sensitivity where the object being polished seems to guide the hand as much as the hand guides the tool. Consider the patience inherent in this phase of the work. Many would see the teapot as finished long before the artisan does. To the casual eye, the surface already shines. But the master knows that there is a difference between a surface that is merely shiny and one that has achieved the depth of a mirror-like finish. That depth, that luminosity that seems to emanate from beneath the glaze is only achieved through the final exhaustive rounds of polishing. It requires the artisan to resist the urge to declare the work complete, to push past the temptation of good enough, and to stay with the process until the very limits of the material have been reached. This is a profound life lesson. The difference between excellence and perfection often lies in the willingness to do the work that no one else will notice. The sounds of the afternoon are a delicate tapestry. The distant, muffled life of the kiln district, the occasional call of a bird through the high window, the rhythmic shh of the agate, and the soft, steady breathing of the artisan. These sounds are not distractions. They are the background music of a life lived in accordance with its own principles. The artisan does not resent the noise of the outside world, nor do they seek to isolate themselves from it. They simply hold the workshop as a space apart, a place where the noise is filtered out and replaced by the clarity of intent. This is the goal of anyone seeking to live a life of focus, not to escape the world, but to find a center that remains calm, regardless of how much external noise there might be. The artisan's concentration is not a state of tension, but a state of absolute effortless alignment. Think of a river flowing over a smooth bed of stones. There is power, there is movement, but there is no struggle. The water simply follows the path that is set for it. So too does the artisan's hand follow the path dictated by the shape of the teapot. This effortless power is the result of years of practice, a testament to the fact that when you dedicate yourself to a craft, the work eventually becomes a part of you. You no longer have to try to be good. You simply are good because the practice has shaped your being into the necessary form. This is the true meaning of mastery. It is not the acquisition of a skill, but the transformation of the self. As the late afternoon shadows begin to creep across the floor, the artisan pauses. They hold the teapot up to the light, turning it slowly to observe the way the finish catches the rays. There is a deep, quiet joy in this moment, a recognition of the beauty that has been revealed through the labor. It is not pride, but a sense of rightness, a feeling that the object is now what it was always intended to be. The artisan then sets the piece on the finished shelf, picks up the next, and begins the process anew. There is no monotony, only the unfolding of another cycle of creation. Each teapot is unique, each one offers a new challenge, and each one is a new opportunity to practice the art of presence. The room remains silent, save for the rhythmic sound of the stone. As the afternoon slowly yields to the approach of evening, the artisans continuing their labor with a devotion that is both quiet and monumental, a beacon of integrity in the heart of the bustling imperial city. The dusk of the third day settles over the workshop with a heavy velvet-like quality, casting the entire space in shades of deep indigo and charcoal. The artisan, having worked through the final rays of light, now sits in the center of the room, the tools finally laid to rest in their designated cedar trays. The silence that fills the space is profound, a tangible weight that holds the history of the last few days within its grip. The pile of finished teapots on the shelf, now numbering in the dozens, sits in the shadows like a collection of dormant, precious stones. Each one is a vessel of potential, waiting to be filled with the tea of some future morning. Yet for now, they are perfectly still, their surfaces absorbing the last vestiges of the light. In this moment of reflection, the artisan considers the cycle of their own life. How many such days have passed within these walls? How many thousands of strokes have their hands performed? And how many times have they sought the same clarity of finish? It is a staggering thought, yet it brings no weariness. Instead, it brings a sense of continuity. The artisan understands that they are not the owner of this craft, but merely its current steward. The techniques, the rhythm, the very philosophy of the work. These are ancient things passed down through a lineage that stretches back further than the Ming Dynasty itself. To be a part of this tradition is to be a part of something that is larger than the individual, and in that there is a deep, abiding comfort. Consider the human need for such legacies. We live in an age of disposable things, where the objects we own are designed to be replaced, and the work we do is often ephemeral, disappearing into the digital void. We lose the sense of connection to the past, and consequently, we lose our sense of place in the future. The artisan's work is an antidote to this. By creating objects that are built to endure, by perfecting a craft that requires the investment of years, they are asserting that some things are worth keeping, worth honoring, and worth passing on. They are creating a physical anchor in a world that is constantly drifting. If you find yourself feeling untethered, consider what you're creating that might last. What skills, What values or what objects are you putting into the world that will speak for you after you are gone? The evening air grows cooler, and the artisan, feeling the familiar grounding ache in their shoulders, finally rises from the bench. The process of closing is performed with a slow, meditative pace. The cloths are shaken clean of the fine white dust of the porcelain. The water basin is emptied, and the windows are latched, sealing the workshop against the night. Each action is performed with intention. There is no haste, no desire to be anywhere else. The workshop is not a place to escape from, but a sanctuary to return to. As they walk toward the door, they take a final look at the room, now completely dark, save for the faint moonlight tracing the outline of the workbench. It is a place of profound integrity, a space where the noise of the world cannot enter. Stepping out into the cool night chill street, the artisan begins their walk home. The city of Jingdezhen is alive with the sounds of the night. The distant rhythmic clatter of kiln operations, the laughter of merchants, the soft murmuring conversations of people in the streets. Yet, the artisan moves through this noise as if wrapped in a bubble of silence. They carry the stillness of the workshop with them, a portable peace that protects them from the chaotic external world. They know that this peace is not a gift from the outside, but an accomplishment from within. It is the result of the hundreds of strokes of the agate, the thousands of breaths taken in alignment, and the unwavering commitment to the work of the present. As they reach their home, they feel a deep resonating sense of gratitude for the day, for the work, and for the simple, profound ability to remain centered. The world may be in constant flux, but the artisan's core remains as smooth, as hard, and as reflective as the porcelain they polish, a testament to the fact that no matter the storms outside, the inner life can always be a sanctuary of perfect stillness. They enter their home ready to sleep, their mind as clear as the morning star that will soon rise to herald the start of another equally beautiful day of dedication. The dawn of the fourth day arrives with a crisp, ethereal quality, the sky above Jingdezhen painting itself in soft hues of lilac and pale gold. As the artisan unlocks the heavy wooden doors, the workshop greets them with its familiar cool embrace, smelling faintly of damp earth and the residual dust of fired kaolin. The routine remains an anchor, the methodical opening of the clerestory window, the careful filling of the water basin, and the reverent layout of the agate tools upon the worn cedar bench. There is an unspoken understanding that the sanctity of this space must be maintained at all costs, for it is the vessel through which the artisan's life finds its meaning. The silence is not an absence of sound but a presence, a dense vibrating layer of concentration that has been woven into the fabric of the walls over years of devoted repetitive labor. As the first teapot of the new cycle is retrieved from the rack, the artisan observes the slight imperfections remaining from the firing process. Each vessel tells a story of the kiln's intensity, carrying the tiny erratic imprints of the heat. It is the role of the polisher to navigate these irregularities, not by forcing them into submission, but by harmonizing them through the slow rhythmic application of the agate stone. The movement begins, and the soft liquid shh fills the room, acting as a rhythmic pulse that synchronizes the artisan's breath with the friction of the stone against the glaze. This is the moment of surrender, when the artisan lets go of their own desires and expectations, allowing the material to dictate the speed, the pressure, and the path of the polish. The progression of the morning is marked by a profound sense of continuity. The artisan does not feel the need to innovate or change the process. They understand that true mastery lies in the depth of repetition. By doing the same thing over and over, with an increasing level of awareness, they are constantly uncovering new layers of subtlety in the interaction between the hand and the clay. It is like a musician playing the same scale until it becomes not just an exercise, but an exploration of the fundamental properties of sound. The artisan is not just polishing a teapot, they are polishing the quality of their own attention. Every stroke is a chance to be more precise, more present, and more deeply aligned with the reality of the task at hand. Consider the societal pressure to always be new, to chase the next trend, or to constantly disrupt the established way of doing things. The artisan's existence is a quiet, radical protest against this obsession with novelty. By choosing the path of deep, sustained, and ancient craft, they are finding a freedom that is unavailable to those who are always looking for the next exit. There is a deep, abiding joy in becoming one with a tradition, in feeling the weight of the thousands of masters who stood before you. You are never truly alone, and your work is never truly your own. It is a manifestation of a lineage of excellence that you are honored to carry forward. This perspective brings a sense of humility and a sense of belonging that is profoundly grounding in a world that often feels fractured and transient. As the sun climbs higher, the workshop warms and the light moves across the floor with an agonizingly slow, beautiful consistency. The artisan continues their work, each vessel becoming a mirror of the room's quiet order. There is no urgency to reach the end of the day or the end of the pile. The work is the reward. If you were to ask the artisan if they are ever bored, they would likely not even understand the question. Boredom requires a lack of engagement. It requires a mind that is looking for stimulation elsewhere. But in the workshop, the stimulation is endless. It is found in the texture of the glaze, the resistance of the clay, the shifting quality of the light, and the unfolding mystery of the craft itself. They are not waiting for the day to end. They are savoring every moment of its unfolding. The world may be filled with distractions, but inside this room, the artisan has cultivated a fortress of presence that is impenetrable, a testament to the idea that peace is not something we find in the world, but something we build, stroke by stroke, within our own lives. The early afternoon hours in the Jingdezhen workshop possess a unique golden quality that seems to suspend time itself. The artisan, having spent the morning in a state of quiet, methodical labor, now finds themselves in the deepest phase of their daily work cycle. The teapots laid out before them, a collection of varying sizes and shapes, are approaching the point of completion, their surfaces reflecting the soft ambient light in a way that suggests they are almost breathing. It is a moment of near total immersion. The artisan's hands move with a grace that has been cultivated through decades of practice. The motion is fluid, constant, and entirely free of hesitation. They have long since moved past the point of thinking about the process. The process has become a part of their own physical biology. The pressure applied by the agate stone is instinctive, calibrated to the micro level by a lifetime of tactile intelligence. There is a profound, almost spiritual dimension to this level of engagement. When an individual commits to a task with such absolute dedication, the boundary between the self and the other begins to blur. The teapot is no longer an object upon which work is being performed. It is a partner in an ongoing dialogue. The artisan feels the glaze through the stone, and the stone transmits the nature of the clay back to the artisan. This is not mere labor. This is communion. In a world that is obsessed with the separation of the worker from the work of the person from the product, the artisan represents a return to a more integrated form of existence. They are proving that when we bring our full undivided attention to a single small aspect of reality, we can experience a sense of wholeness that is rarely found in the broader, more distracted world. Consider the significance of the sound that dominates the environment. It is the sound of friction, yes, but it is also the sound of refinement. It is the auditory equivalent of stripping away the unnecessary, of smoothing out the rough edges, of creating a surface that is capable of true reflection. If we were to apply this same principle to our internal lives, what would we find? What are the rough edges of our own personalities that hold us back from reflecting the truth of our own being? our anxieties, our insecurities, our attachments to outcomes. These are the impurities in our internal glaze. The artisan's work is a silent sermon on the necessity of self refinement. By doing the work on the clay, they are constantly reminded of the need to do the work on themselves, to remain humble, focused, and ever ready to smooth out the frictions of daily existence. As the sun begins its long, slow descent toward the western horizon, the workshop undergoes a gradual transformation. The light becomes warmer, more saturated, casting long, dramatic shadows that seem to anchor the workbench to the earth. The artisan does not rush to finish. They work with the same deliberate, slow motion precision they utilize at the start of the day. There is no concept of being finished here. There is only the ongoing process of being in the moment. Each teapot is a standalone universe of effort, and each deserves the same level of care and presence. The artisan finds that as they continue, the sense of time dissolves. They are simply existing within the flow of the work, a state of being that is deeply restorative and profoundly calm. If you are reading these words and feeling a yearning for this kind of depth in your own life, know that the path is available. It does not require you to move to an imperial kiln district or to learn the ancient art of ceramic polishing. It only requires the willingness to choose one small meaningful task and to commit to it with the same level of integrity that the artisan brings to their stone. Whether it is gardening, writing, cooking, or simply sitting in silence, the quality of the work is not determined by the nature of the task, but by the level of presence we bring to it. As the artisan reaches the end of another day, the last of the teapots is polished, inspected, and placed upon the rack. They stand, their body feeling loose and energized by the hours of steady rhythmic movement. The workshop is silent now, bathed in the deep violet hues of the approaching night, a sanctuary of peace that is once again ready for the promise of tomorrow. They exit the door clicking softly shut, leaving behind a chamber that hums with the memory of work well done, a quiet, enduring legacy of human patience, and the quiet, radiant beauty of the perfectly realized present. The morning air of the fifth day arrives with a sharpness that invigorates the senses, carrying with it the faint, crisp scent of dew-drenched earth and the clean mineral promise of the riverbank clay. As the artisan slides the bolt of the workshop door open, the familiar greeting of the space, the cool, shadowed stillness feels like an embrace. This sanctuary has become, in every sense, the anchor of their reality. The rituals of opening, the methodical positioning of the wooden shutters, the filling of the stoneware basins, the gentle alignment of the agate tools are not chores but necessary articulations of purpose. They are the deliberate steps that bridge the gap between the chaotic, unpredictable outside world and the ordered, intentional reality that exists within these walls. Each movement is a vow of commitment to the task ahead, a silent promise to treat the day's work as a sacred opportunity for refinement. As the first teapot of the new cycle is drawn from the rack, the artisan observes it with the practiced eye of a master. The glaze is cool to the touch, still holding the faint ghost-like chill of the nighttime air. They do not hurry. They turn the vessel slowly, feeling the curvature against the pads of their fingers, mapping the terrain they are about to traverse. The polishing process is a conversation between two entities, the human intention and the geological history of the clay. When the agate stone makes its first contact, the sound is a soft, friction-driven purr, a rhythmic cadence that resonates through the workbench and into the artisan's own frame. This is the heartbeat of the workshop, the fundamental oscillation that will govern the next several hours. It is in this sound that the artisan finds their truest home, a space where the past and the present collapse into a singular, unwavering point of focus. There is a profound, quiet dignity in this, the persistent act of smoothing a surface until it is perfect. In a modern era that often values the quick fix, the innovative disruption, and the rapid turnover of products, the artisan's life feels like a quiet, persistent, and essential resistance. They are not trying to change the world, they are trying to understand it through the medium of the material. They understand that to truly know a thing, one must spend time with it. To truly refine a thing, one must be willing to let go of the ego and simply follow the natural laws of form and pressure. This is a lesson that echoes across the centuries. The highest form of intelligence is not the ability to command, but the ability to listen. When the artisan listens to the clay, they learn what it needs. When we listen to our lives, we learn what we need. As the sun begins to climb, casting sharper shadows across the workshop floor, the artisan continues the rhythmic motion. The agate stone is a faithful companion, its surface worn smooth by years of contact with the porcelain. There is no sense of time passing, only the sense of work unfolding. If one were to watch from the doorway, the artisan might appear as a statue, so steady is their posture, so focused their gaze, but beneath the surface there is a constant dynamic negotiation. Every micro adjustment of the hand, every shift in the pressure of the stone is a response to the subtle changes in the glaze. It is a high level cognitive and physical engagement, a state of flow that is as demanding as it is restorative. The artisan is not working to reach the end. They are working to be entirely, completely present in the middle. Why is this so difficult for the modern mind to grasp? We are conditioned to fear the middle. We want the beginning to be fast and the end to be glorious, and we view the space between as something to be endured, skipped, or optimized. But the middle is where life actually happens. The middle is the texture of the day, the weight of the air, the rhythmic pause of the task, the quiet unfolding of one's own potential. The artisan's life is a masterclass in the value of the middle. They show us that if we can learn to love the process, not the result, but the actual act of doing, then the fear of boredom, the anxiety of accomplishment, and the restlessness of desire all fall away. We are left with something far more precious, the simple, profound, and luminous satisfaction of a life lived with integrity. As the hours drift by, the workshop becomes a vessel for this state of being. The light from the clerestory window creates a changing pattern on the walls, a silent clock that marks the steady progress of the sun. The artisan does not check the time. They have no need to. They know the day by the quality of the light, the warmth of the air, and the feel of the porcelain beneath the stone. When the afternoon sun begins to mellow, shifting into the golden-hued glow of the coming evening, the artisan feels the work approaching its natural conclusion for the day. They have polished their quota, and more importantly, they have polished their own internal state. The workshop is quiet, save for the faint, lingering echo of the agate, and the artisan stands with a sense of complete, unburdened presence, ready to step out into the fading day, carrying with them the silence they have cultivated so well. The sixth morning in Jingdezhen descends with a soft, diffuse light, the kind of illumination that seems to originate from everywhere at once, casting no sharp edges but rather a gentle enveloping warmth. The artisan enters the workshop, the air still cool and crisp, carrying the scent of damp, mineral-rich earth from the kiln grounds outside. The ritual begins as it always does, the opening of the heavy iron-bound doors, the silent acknowledgement of the workspace and the deliberate layout of the tools. Each motion is imbued with a sense of profound reverence. There is no urgency here, no modern compulsion to rush toward the outcome. Instead, there is the quiet, methodical unfolding of a life that has found its rhythm, a life that is governed not by the ticking of a clock, but by the texture of the work and the internal calibration of the soul. As the artisan picks up the first vessel of the day, a delicate teapot with a refined, slender spout, they take a long moment to study its contours. The firing has left it with a subtle organic quality, a reminder that it was once earth, then water, then flame, and is now finally a form ready for the concluding touch of the hand. The agate stone meets the glaze with a sound that is soft yet resonant, a rhythmic shh that quickly becomes the dominant force in the workshop. This sound is not merely noise, it is the auditory manifestation of focus. With every pass of the stone, the artisan is not just changing the surface, they are entering into a dialogue with the material, sensing the slight variations in density, the minute shifts in curvature, and the subtle imperfections that require a more delicate touch. This level of attention is a form of prayer. It is an act of total surrender to the moment, a shedding of the ego in service to the object. To be this present is to be completely protected from the anxieties that typically plague the human heart. When the mind is occupied entirely by the physical reality of the task, there is no space left for the ruminations of the past or the fears of the future. The artisan is, in this state, perfectly aligned with the natural order. They are not trying to impose their will upon the world. They are allowing the world to reveal its own latent beauty through their patient, sustained efforts. It is a powerful reminder that we are at our most effective and our most peaceful when we stop trying to control and start trying to understand. Consider the societal structures that surround the artisan. Outside these walls, the Ming Dynasty is a place of intrigue, of imperial decrees, of the rise and fall of families, and the heavy burden of duty. But inside this room, none of that matters. The artisan has created a space where the only authority is the authority of the work itself. This is a lesson of profound importance for anyone feeling overwhelmed by the complexity of modern life. We are all capable of creating these internal sanctuaries. We are all capable of deciding for a few hours a day that the demands of the world are secondary to the cultivation of our own stillness and the quality of our own attention. If we can learn to hold on to this space, even amidst the noise, we will find that we have a center that cannot be shaken. As the sun arcs across the sky, the workshop undergoes its daily metamorphosis, the light shifting from the cool, silvery tones of the morning to the warm, honeyed glow of the late afternoon. The artisan remains in the same chair, the same steady, rhythmic pulse of the agate guiding their movements. They have lost track of the hours, and they have lost the desire to track them. The work is enough. Each teapot is a standalone experience, a fresh start, a new set of challenges that require the same level of care. There is no boredom, for boredom is a symptom of a mind that is elsewhere. The artisan is fully here, fully engaged, and fully alive in the tactile, physical reality of the glaze. As the light begins to wane, casting long, deep shadows that soften the harsh lines of the workbench, the artisan sets down the agate for the final time. The day's production, a collection of flawlessly polished vessels, sits on the rack, a testament to the power of sustained intentional effort. They stand up, feeling the pleasant grounding weight of the day's work in their muscles. The silence returns to the room, now amplified by the peace that lingers after a day of purposeful labor. They perform the closing rites, the sweeping of the floor, the cleaning of the tools, the extinguishing of the lust of the day's light, each movement performed with the same dignity and respect they brought to the start of the morning. Stepping out into the cool, starlit air, the artisan feels a sense of quiet triumph. They have successfully navigated another day, not by force of will, but by the gentle, persistent application of patience, a skill that is far more durable and far more transformative than any power held by the emperors in the palace nearby. The sun rises on the seventh day with a pale, diluted luminescence, struggling to pierce the thick morning mist that has rolled down from the mountains to settle over the kiln district. Inside the workshop, the air is heavy with the scent of damp, unrefined kaolin, a reminder of the raw potential that defines this place. The artisan enters with a steady, measured gait, the quiet rhythm of their footsteps echoing against the packed earth floor. The ritual of the morning is a physical manifestation of mindfulness. They move through the sequence, unlocking the door, unlatching the heavy shutters, and filling the basin with fresh, cool water, with a level of intentionality that transforms these mundane acts into a ceremony of presence. There is no desire to skip ahead to the work. The preparation is an essential part of the journey, a way of signaling to the mind that the time for fragmentation has ended and the time for focus has begun. As they settle into the seat at the workbench, the artisan takes the first teapot of the morning. It is a vessel of humble design, yet it possesses a weight and balance that speaks of the potter's skill. As the agate stone makes its first tentative contact with the fired surface, the sound that rises is like a sigh of relief. It is a familiar, comforting friction, a tactile language that the artisan has spoken for a lifetime. They do not work with force. They work with a delicate, calibrated pressure that respects the integrity of the glaze. It is a dance of millimeters, a constant adjustment of angle and speed to ensure that every curve is perfectly addressed. This is not just manual labor. It is a profound exercise in humility, for one must be willing to let the material guide the hand rather than the other way around. Consider the nature of the artisan's focus. It is not a narrow, constricted awareness, but an expansive one. They are aware of the way the light is changing outside, the way the air is moving through the workshop, and the rhythmic, almost hypnotic sound of their own work. They are connected to the history of the materials, the generations of potters who have worked with this same clay, and the millions of people who will, in some distant future, touch these very surfaces. This connectivity is what prevents the repetitive motion from becoming a burden. It turns each day into a link in a much larger chain, a contribution to a collective human effort that transcends the life of any single individual. The artisan is a part of this, and in that realization, they find a peace that is both grounded and infinite. As the day deepens, the mist outside slowly retreats, leaving behind a world that is vibrant and clear. Within the workshop, the intensity of the light increases, forcing the artisan to become even more attentive to the surface of the porcelain. A single grain of dust, a tiny imperfection in the agate. These are the enemies of perfection, and they must be navigated with extreme care. The artisan works with a sense of quiet, unwavering duty. There is no ego in this, no desire for acclaim or recognition. They are simply doing the work that needs to be done in the way it needs to be done, because that is the path of the master. This dedication to the unseen quality of the craft, the polish that others may not notice, but which the object itself demands, is the mark of true artistic integrity. The hours pass in a seamless, fluid motion. The artisan moves from one teapot to the next, their hands maintaining the same level of care, the same degree of presence. There is no sense of having done enough. There is only the sense of being in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. When the late afternoon light begins to paint the walls in shades of soft amber, they take a brief pause to stretch and look out the high window. The district is bustling with the activity of the evening trade, but here the stillness remains untouched. The artisan realizes that the workshop is not just a room, it is a physical space of resistance, a place where they have successfully created a reality that is governed by different laws, the laws of patience, of clarity, and of deliberate, persistent effort. As they begin the closing of the workshop, the feeling is one of deep, abiding contentment. They have not only produced a series of beautifully finished objects, they have cultivated a state of mind that is both resilient and calm. They know that tomorrow will bring new challenges, new clay, and new opportunities for the same level of commitment. They are not chasing a goal, they are living a way of being. They step out into the evening, the air now cool and crisp, and as they walk home, they feel the quiet, steady pulse of their own life in perfect harmony with the world around them. The workshop stands behind them, a dark, silent monument to the work of the day, a place they will return to with the same reverence when the sun rises to begin the cycle once more. The eighth day begins with the quiet majesty of a midsummer dawn, the sky transforming from a deep velvety indigo to a brilliant expansive azure. Inside the workshop, the artisan finds the atmosphere already charged with a familiar expectant energy. The ritual of opening is performed with a grace that has been polished as thoroughly as the teapots themselves. Each movement is a deliberate, conscious choice, a rejection of the hurried, fragmented existence that dominates the world outside these walls. The artisan walks to the workbench, their hand brushing the smooth, cool wood of the surface, feeling a sense of gratitude for the stability and the silence. They know that this space is their greatest teacher. It demands nothing but presence and offers everything in return, a path toward clarity, a rhythm that restores the soul, and the quiet joy of meaningful work. As the artisan selects the first piece, they take a moment to truly look at it, observing the way the early light plays across the curves of the fired clay. It is a simple functional object, yet in its form there is a kind of distilled wisdom. The potter who crafted it understood the necessity of balance, of capacity, and of elegance. The artisan's task is to elevate this form to its ultimate potential through the alchemy of the polish. The agate stone is retrieved, and as it begins to glide across the surface, the shh that resonates throughout the room feels like a deep collective exhale. This is the sound of tension being released, not just from the ceramic, but from the artisan's own body. It is a form of active meditation where the physical friction becomes a channel for psychological release. Consider the discipline required to maintain this level of engagement over the course of hours, days, and years. It is not a discipline of willpower, but one of surrender. The artisan has learned that the more they try to force the result, the more resistance they encounter from the material. The secret they have discovered is to align their intention with the grain of the clay, to work with the natural properties of the ceramic rather than against them. This is a principle that extends far beyond the workshop. If we could approach our relationships, our projects, and our own inner lives with this same spirit of collaboration rather than domination, how much more grace might we find? The artisan's life is a testament to the fact that when we stop fighting the reality of our circumstances and begin to work with the truth of them, we unlock a potential that was previously hidden. The middle of the day is marked by the relentless movement of the sun, casting its heat against the thick, earthen walls, yet the interior of the workshop remains cool and sequestered, a testament to the wisdom of its design. The artisan continues to work, their focus narrowing until there is no world outside of the teapot. They notice things that others would overlook. The infinitesimal shift in the reflection, the microscopic change in the density of the glaze, the way the light catches the edge of the spout. These details are the language of the master, and the artisan speaks it fluently. They are not striving for recognition, they are striving for alignment. Every stroke is a testament to the belief that the quality of our attention is the most valuable resource we possess. As the afternoon light begins to soften, taking on the rich golden hue of the harvest season, the artisan feels the work deepening. There is a sense of inevitability in the process now. The pots are not being polished so much as they are being revealed. They are shedding the last vestiges of the kiln's chaotic influence, emerging into their true radiant selves. The artisan feels a quiet, profound pride, not in their own skill, but in the harmony of the process. They are a witness to the beauty of the work, a humble participant in the long unfolding story of Jingdezhen. They know that once these pieces leave the shop, they will carry a piece of this stillness into the world, serving as silent, enduring reminders of the value of focus and the dignity of manual patient labor. As the dusk begins to pull a curtain of violet over the workshop, the artisan finally sets down the agate stone. The final teapot of the day sits on the rack, a mirror-finished masterpiece that catches the last flickering light of the evening lamp. The artisan stands, stretches, and feels the familiar resonant ache of a day well spent. The room is quiet, the air is thick with the scent of clay and peace, and the feeling of accomplishment is as firm and solid as the ground beneath their feet. They go through the closing ritual with a renewed sense of gratitude, locking the door on a day that has been lived with total undivided intention. Stepping out into the cool evening air, they feel the vibrancy of the city, but it no longer feels chaotic or demanding. It is merely the context in which they exist, a colorful, shifting backdrop to the stable, centered reality they have nurtured within themselves, a reality that they will return to tomorrow and the day after with the same steady, unwavering devotion. The dawn of the ninth day reveals itself through the high clerestory window, not as a singular event, but as a gradual transition of light, a soft, pale infusion of color that seems to clarify the very dust motes dancing in the air. The artisan enters the workshop, their movements possessing that familiar, unhurried grace that comes from a life synchronized with the seasons and the cycle of the kiln. There is a profound comfort in the predictability of the morning, the iron bolt sliding back with a resonant metallic click, the scent of earth and mineral-rich water rushing to meet them, and the sight of the rows of teapots waiting like silent, clay-bodied monks for the blessing of the polishing stone. For the artisan, this is not just a room, it is a membrane between the noise of the imperial city and the sanctuary of the inner self, a place where the ego is dissolved in the service of the craft. As they begin the day's work, selecting the first piece of porcelain, the artisan feels the cool, smooth surface and experiences a momentary flash of connection, not to the material but to the process itself. It is a feeling of homecoming. The first application of the agate is light, almost exploratory, a tactile inquiry into the readiness of the glaze. When the stone makes contact, the resulting sound, the signature shh that defines this life, seems to vibrate through the floor and into the very bones of the artisan. It is a grounding frequency, a sonic anchor that prevents the mind from wandering into the traps of speculative thought or the anxieties of the future. In this state, the artisan is not merely a worker, they are a conductor, and the teapot is the instrument. The goal is to reach that elusive, perfect, harmonic balance where the surface is no longer just polished, but appears to possess an internal liquid radiance. Consider the nature of this endeavor to an outsider. The artisan is engaged in the most mundane, repetitive task imaginable. They are rubbing a stone against a piece of clay for hours on end, day after day, in a room that smells of wet earth. But the artisan knows that to judge the work by its appearance is to miss the point entirely. The true labor is the management of one's own consciousness. If the mind is agitated, the hand is heavy, and the polish is uneven. If the mind is distracted, the stone slips and the surface is marred. Mastery, therefore, is the practice of maintaining a state of equanimity. It is the ability to show up fully in the same moment thousands of times over without losing the spark of interest or the discipline of care. This is the secret, quiet path to a greatness that the world rarely recognizes because it is far too busy looking for the loud and the fast. By the time the sun has climbed to its apex, casting sharp, uncompromising light across the workbench, the artisan has reached a state of flow that is both physical and metaphysical. Their body is relaxed, their breathing is deep and rhythmic, and their mind is a clear, unruffled pool. They have become so attuned to the material that they can feel a hidden structural flaw or an inconsistency in the glaze before the eye even perceives it. The agate stone seems to know the path of its own volition, dancing across the curves and crevices of the teapot with an intuition that bypasses conscious thought. This is the ultimate stage of craftsmanship, when the technique is so thoroughly integrated that it becomes an extension of the practitioner's own nervous system. It is here that the artisan experiences the profound satisfaction of working in total alignment with their purpose. As the afternoon light begins to stretch across the floor, painting the room in deep, dramatic shadows, the artisan continues to work with a relentless, gentle persistence. There is no rush to conclude, there is only the ongoing sacred present. They feel the weight of the years behind them, the legacy of all those who stood at this bench before, and they feel the responsibility of carrying that tradition forward. Yet, this is not a heavy burden. It is a source of strength. They know that they are part of a lineage that values beauty, patience, and the integrity of the human hand over the fleeting demands of the epoch. This realization provides a sense of belonging that is more secure than any earthly status. They are a servant of the craft, and the craft in turn provides them with a sanctuary that no emperor can command or dismantle. When the final teapot of the day is placed on the shelf, the artisan does not immediately exit. They stand for a long moment in the gathering twilight, listening to the silence of the room. The workshop feels alive with the spirit of the day's labor, a resonant stillness that is both exhausting and exhilarating. They move through the closing routine, the cleaning of the tools, the folding of the cloths, the securing of the shutters, with a final lingering sense of reverence. The work is finished, but the sense of calm remains, a persistent, luminous quality that they will carry out into the night. Stepping into the bustling street, they find themselves untouched by the frenetic energy of the market. They are anchored, centered, and profoundly at peace, a quiet, polished vessel of integrity in a world that is always in need of a mirror that can reflect the truth of the present moment. The dawn of the 10th day breaks with a subtle, pearlescent glow, a morning characterized by the soft, diffuse light that seems to hold the very world in a state of quiet contemplation. As the artisan slides the heavy bolt of the workshop door aside, the sound echoes with a finality that feels ancient, signaling the start of a ritual that has become the definitive architecture of their life. The space is waiting cool and still, the air thick with the promise of the day's work. There is no urgency in the way the artisan moves to the workbench, only the deliberate rhythmic grace of someone who understands that time is not a resource to be spent, but a medium to be inhabited. The tools, the agate stone, the soft linens, the water basin are arranged with a precision that borders on the religious, each one occupying the exact space where it can best serve the purpose of the whole. As the first teapot is cradled in the artisan's hands, they feel the faint residual warmth of the clay, almost as if it were holding a secret memory of the kiln's fire. They do not rush. They turn the vessel, observing the way the light catches the slight variations in the glaze, a topography of fired earth that is unique to this particular piece. The agate stone is lifted, and when it first kisses the surface, the shh that follows is soft, a whisper that cuts through the silence and anchors the artisan in the absolute center of the moment. This sound is the heartbeat of the workshop. It is the fundamental rhythm to which all other movements must align. It is in this sound that the artisan finds the clarity of their own being, a state where the noise of the external world, the politics of the empire, the fluctuations of the market, the distant clamor of the city is rendered entirely irrelevant. Consider the profound, quiet power of such a life. To live in a world that is obsessed with the outcome, the artisan has chosen the process. To live in a world that demands constant, loud, and visible achievement, the artisan has chosen the path of the hidden, the internal, and the enduring. They are constructing their own existence, stroke by stroke, using the agate stone as their tool and the teapot as their medium. This is not a life of withdrawal, but a life of deep focused engagement. They are engaging with the nature of perfection, with the discipline of presence, and with the joy of labor that is untainted by the ego. Each teapot, when it leaves this shop, carries the silent energy of this focus, a testament to the fact that When we commit ourselves fully to the small and the specific, we are actually participating in something that is vast and universal. As the day advances, the light from the clerestory window creeps slowly across the floor, a silent celestial clock that measures the progress of the work. The artisan does not feel the burden of the hours. They are in a state of flow, a psychological condition of such complete absorption that the boundaries between the self, the tool, and the object cease to exist. They are not doing the polishing. The polishing is simply occurring through them. Their hands move with a sureness that is independent of thought, guided by a muscle memory that has been forged over decades of dedicated practice. In this state, they are truly free. The anxiety of the future is absent. The regret of the past is irrelevant, and the entire universe is compressed into the tiny shimmering circle where the agate stone meets the porcelain. The afternoon arrives, and with it, the quiet golden warmth that bathes the workshop in an amber-hued serenity. The artisan continues, their pace as steady and unhurried as the flow of the river that feeds the city. They have reached the final stage of the final piece for the day, and they treat it with the same level of care and reverence as they did the very first one at dawn. This is the ultimate test of the master, to maintain the same quality of attention from the first stroke of the day to the last, never allowing the creeping fatigue or the sense of completion to dull the edge of their commitment. As they finish, the teapot is placed on the rack, its surface so perfect that it seems to absorb the remaining light and hold it within its own crystalline structure. When the artisan stands and begins the routine of closing the workshop, there is a profound sense of closure that settles over the space. The tools are cleaned and returned to their boxes, the water is poured out, and the shutters are latched against the cooling, darkening world. The artisan moves with a slow, deliberate cadence, their body feeling a pleasant grounding weight that is the reward of honest, sustained, and focused labor. As they step out into the evening, the air is cool and the sky is filled with the first faint glimmers of the stars. They walk through the district with a sense of complete, unshakable peace. The workshop is behind them, a dark, silent chamber that holds the legacy of the day. But the clarity they have cultivated remains within them. They are ready to meet the evening, the night, and the day to come, carrying the stillness of the stone and the clarity of the porcelain as their most faithful and most silent companions. The 11th stone in Jingdezhen arrives with a crispness that speaks of shifting seasons, a faint chill in the air that makes the warmth of the workshop feel like a sanctuary. As the artisan engages the heavy lock, the sound of the metal pin sliding home is a familiar mantra, a signal to the mind that the chaotic variables of the outside world have been successfully barred. The workshop remains in its state of perpetual readiness, a stage set for the performance of patience. The artisan moves to the workbench, their steps soundless on the packed earth, and begins the ritual. The slow unfurling of the window shutters to invite the morning's first tentative light, the rhythmic pouring of the water into the stone basins, and the meticulous arrangement of the agate tools. Each gesture is a deliberate act of mindfulness, a way of grounding the spirit before the work begins. As the first teapot of the day is retrieved from the rack, the artisan holds it for a moment, letting the coolness of the porcelain against their skin register. They are not simply preparing to work, they are acknowledging the history of the object, the labor of the potter who turned the wheel, the skill of the artist who applied the glaze, and the heat of the kiln that transformed the raw, malleable earth into this permanent, elegant form. The artisan is the final link in this long ancestral chain of creation. When the agate stone meets the surface, the shh that ensues is the sound of an ancient promise being kept. It is a soft friction-born rasp that feels like the very texture of time itself. With every circular stroke, the artisan is not just refining a glaze, They are engaging in a process of purification, shedding the superficial irregularities of the firing to reveal the underlying essential beauty of the vessel. Consider the discipline required to maintain this level of commitment. The world outside is a theater of ambition, where value is measured by the speed of acquisition and the noise of one's accomplishments. In the workshop, value is measured by the stillness of the hand and the clarity of the focus. The artisan is a master of the unseen. For while the final surface of the teapot will eventually shimmer with a mirror-like finish, the hours of labor that go into achieving that state are invisible. There is a deep, abiding integrity in this. To work with such intensity when no one is watching, to refine a surface that will be held by unknown hands in unknown futures, this is the purest form of dedication. It is the realization that the work is not for the audience. It is for the sake of the work itself and for the sake of the person who performs it. By the time the sun has reached its zenith, the artisan has achieved a state of total absorption. The light, pouring down from the clerestory window, highlights the fine white dust that hangs in the air, creating a golden shimmering atmosphere that feels almost suspended. The artisan's movements are no longer directed by thought. They are guided by a deep-seated intuitive intelligence. The stone glides across the spout, the lid and the belly of the teapot with a grace that is both precise and fluid. They are not struggling with the porcelain, they are dancing with it. In this state of flow, the boundary between the worker and the work vanishes, leaving only the act of refinement and experience of profound, unadulterated existence. As the afternoon light begins to pivot toward the west, the artisan's pace remains unchanged, methodical, unhurried, and deeply intentional. They have learned that to hurry is to compromise, and to compromise is to break the spell of the craft. They have long since mastered the art of managing their own energy, balancing the physical demands of the labor with the mental requirements of the focus. They are never exhausted because they are never resisting the task. They are moving with the grain of the day, a participant in the slow, rhythmic turning of the world. Each teapot completed is not an end, but a continuation, a seamless transition from one state of potential to another, realized through the medium of their patient, steady hands. When the shadows finally stretch across the floor to embrace the far wall, the artisan sets the last vessel of the day upon the rack. The sight is one of quiet, monumental satisfaction, rows of polished luminous teapots that seem to hold the day's sunlight within their glaze. They begin the closing routine, moving through the space with a reverence that acknowledges the work it has witnessed. The tools are cleaned, the dust is swept away, and the workshop is restored to its pristine state of potential. As the artisan walks into the cool, darkening street, they carry the stillness of the shop with them, a portable piece that acts as a shield against the erratic rhythms of the city. They have fulfilled their duty to the craft, to the ancestors, and to their own soul, and as they head toward home, they are already looking forward to the morning when the first light will again invite them to enter the sanctuary of the stone, the glaze, and the profoundly beautifully lived-in present. The 12th dawn in Jingdezhen arrives with a stillness so profound it feels as if the very air has been held in anticipation of the day's work. The artisan enters the workshop, and as the heavy wooden door swings shut, the familiar grounding scent of earth and filtered water acts as a balm to the spirit. This environment has long since transcended the functional. It is a repository of silence, a space where the noise of the imperial city is not just muffled, but entirely neutralized. The ritual of the morning, the slow, deliberate manipulation of the window shutters, the arrangement of the stone basins, and the placing of the agate tools is performed with the solemnity of a prayer. There is no desire to rush, no ambition to finish early. There is only the commitment to the sequence of actions that leads inevitably and beautifully to the polishing of the porcelain. As the artisan picks up the first vessel of the day, they feel the faint, lingering chill of the night deep within the clay. This is the starting point of the conversation. a tactile inquiry between the maker and the object. They do not force the stone, they wait for the moment of alignment, the point where the hand, the tool, and the glaze find a common frequency. When the agate begins its work, the sound is a soft, rhythmic rasp, a shh that weaves itself into the fabric of the workshop's silence. This sound is the pulse of the room, a heartbeat that provides a tempo for the artisan's breath and a rhythm for their thoughts. It is in this repetitive, meditative motion that the artisan achieves the clarity they seek, a state of being where the self is not an obstacle to the work, but the very vessel through which the work is realized. Consider the discipline required to maintain this level of presence. The human mind is naturally prone to wander, to leap across the boundaries of time, worrying about what is to come or regretting what has passed. But in this workshop, the artisan has cultivated a mental fortress that bars entry to such distractions. They understand that every stroke of the agate is a singular, unrepeatable moment of creation. If the mind wanders, the stroke is flawed. If the stroke is flawed, the object is diminished. Therefore, the commitment to the teapot is in reality a commitment to one's own consciousness. It is the practice of anchoring the awareness in the present, of choosing to dwell entirely within the physical reality of the task at hand. This is a profound, transformative way to live, one that turns every mundane activity into an act of self-cultivation. By the time the midday sun is pouring its golden intensity through the high window, the workshop has become a space of shimmering suspended time. The artisan works in a state of flow that is both effortless and intense. They do not look at the clock, they do not count the vessels remaining. They exist in the middle of the process, a space that is defined by the gentle pressure of the stone, the subtle shifts in the curvature of the teapot, and the deepening glow of the finish. They are in a very real sense refining themselves alongside the porcelain. Just as the glaze is stripped of its impurities and polished into a reflective surface, the artisan's mind is stripped of its agitation and polished into a state of equanimity. They are the mirror that they are creating, a presence that is smooth, consistent, and perfectly aligned with the truth of the moment. As the afternoon light begins to lengthen and wane, the artisan continues their labor with a devotion that never falters. There is a quiet, steady persistence to their movements that reflects the long historical arc of their craft. They know that they are part of a lineage that values the slow, the deliberate, and the permanent, in an era where the world outside is driven by the frantic pace of the new. The workshop remains a monument to the endurance of the old. The artisan finds deep, nourishing comfort in this. They are not chasing the trends of the empire. They are contributing to the tradition of the earth. This is a source of profound pride, a quiet internal satisfaction that does not require external validation. They are doing the work that needs to be done in the way it has always been done, and that is enough. When the final vessel of the day is placed on the rack, the artisan feels the familiar resonant exhaustion of a day fully lived. The workshop is bathed in the deep indigo shadows of the evening, the air cooling as the heat of the day dissipates. They go through the closing routine, the methodical cleaning of the tools, the folding of the cloth, the securing of the shutters with a sense of reverence that matches their approach to the work itself. As they step out into the evening, the air is refreshing, and the city, though still vibrant, feels far away. They walk home with a sense of complete, unshakable peace, their mind as clear as the polished porcelain they have left behind. They have fulfilled their purpose for the day, and in doing so they have found a version of themselves that is calm, centered, and whole, ready to return to the sanctuary of the workshop, when the dawn returns to begin the cycle once more. The 13th dawn in Jingdezhen descends with a soft, ethereal mist, a veil of gray and white that clings to the eaves of the low-slung workshop and muffles the distant awakening sounds of the imperial city. As the artisan slides the boat and enters the familiar sanctuary, the air feels cool, almost reverent, as if the space itself has been holding its breath throughout the night. The rituals of opening, the methodical practice movements that serve as the foundation of their daily life, begin with a quiet grace. Each action, from the unlatching of the heavy shutters to the filling of the stoneware basin, is performed not as a task, but as a meditation. The artisan is not merely preparing to work, they are preparing their own spirit to enter the state of deep focused presence that defines their existence. As the first teapot of the day is retrieved from the rack, the artisan spends a lingering moment tracing its form. The fired clay, still bearing the subtle organic textures of the kiln's intensity, feels like a relic, a piece of earth that has been granted a new identity through fire. The agate stone is retrieved from its cedar tray, and when it makes its first contact with the glaze, the resonant rhythmic fills the room like a mantra. This sound, which has served as the heartbeat of the workshop for so many years, is more than a byproduct of friction. It is a sonic bridge to the present. With every circular stroke, the artisan is not just polishing a surface, they are anchoring their consciousness in the immediate reality, shedding the distractions of the world outside, and aligning their own internal rhythm with the steady, unhurried pace of the craft. Consider the depths of the commitment required to live in this manner. The modern world often views such repetitive manual work with a sense of condescension, failing to understand that the true mastery lies not in the object but in the evolution of the subject. The artisan is not simply refining the porcelain, they are refining the quality of their own attention. By choosing to stay with the stone, to stay with the teapot, and to stay with the sound of the friction for hours on end, they are training the mind to be the master of its own environment rather than a slave to its impulses. This is a profound radical act of liberation. In a society that is constantly pulling our attention toward the fleeting, the sensational, and the superficial, the artisan's refusal to leave their task is a defiant statement of self-sovereignty. As the morning transitions into the brilliance of the midday sun, the workshop becomes a sanctuary of focused light. The clerestory window casts a beam that seems to highlight the very dust particles in the air, creating a golden, suspended atmosphere. The artisan's hands move with an intuition that bypasses conscious thought. They no longer try to polish. They simply allow the polishing to happen, their bodies acting as the conduit between the intent of the master and the resistance of the clay. In this state of flow, the boundary between the worker and the object dissolves. They are no longer a person in a room working on a teapot. They are a part of a larger process, a living link in a tradition that spans centuries and connects the past, the present, and the potential future of this delicate, beautiful craft. Throughout the afternoon, the artisan remains fixed in this state of deep, sustained engagement. The world outside may be subject to the whims of emperors and the chaos of the marketplace, but inside the workshop, the laws of the universe are governed by patience, precision, and the integrity of the hand. The artisan feels a quiet, profound sense of belonging. They are not chasing the success of the outside world, nor are they burdened by its failures. They are secure in the knowledge that they are contributing something of value, not just to the people who will eventually hold these teapots, but to the very concept of human dignity. By creating beauty with such care, by treating the mundane with such reverence, they are elevating their own existence, and by extension the existence of all who witness their labor. As the shadows begin their slow, graceful migration across the workshop floor, signaling the approach of the evening, the artisan works with the same consistent care they applied to the first piece of the day. There is no sense of rush to finish, no desire to escape the sanctuary. Every stroke remains deliberate. Every movement remains fluid. When the final teapot is set upon the rack, a shimmering, reflective masterpiece that seems to capture the last of the fading light, the artisan feels a resonant, bone-deep satisfaction. They begin the closing ritual, the cleaning of the stones, the smoothing of the cloths, and the securing of the shutters, with a sense of gratitude for the work that has been done. Stepping out into the cool, starlit evening, they carry the stillness of the shop within them. They are at peace with the day, at peace with their path, and ready to greet the silence of the night, their mind as clear and as polished as the ceramic vessels that now wait in the dark for the morning light to return. The dawn of the 14th day breaks with a subtle shimmering clarity that seems to permeate the very air of Jingdezhen, turning the morning mist into a veil of luminous pearl. As the artisan approaches the workshop, their gait is as steady and rhythmic as the turning of the earth itself. The act of unbolting the door is not merely a beginning, it is a transition, a conscious movement from the world of distraction into the world of singular focus. The workshop awaits, cool and still, its atmosphere heavy with the scent of earth, stone, and the patient expectant energy of the work that has been performed within these walls for centuries. There is no urgency in the artisans' movements. They are fully aware that the quality of the day's work depends entirely on the state of mind with which they begin. They move through the familiar ritual, the opening of the wooden shutters, the filling of the stoneware basins, the precise alignment of the agate tools with a deep, abiding reverence, acknowledging the sanctity of this space as a refuge from the chaotic external currents of the imperial city. As they take the first teapot into their hands, they feel the cool, solid weight of the clay, a reminder of the elemental strength that lies beneath its delicate appearance. This initial connection is more than tactile, it is an act of communion. The artisan understands that they are the steward of this object's final refinement, a responsibility they hold with the gravity of a life's vocation. When the agate stone makes its first contact with the fired glaze, the resulting sound, the rhythmic friction-born shh, is a melody of purpose, a sound that harmonizes with the very beat of their own heart. It is the language of the master, a sonic manifestation of the discipline that has kept their hands steady and their mind clear for years. In this repetitive, meditative motion, the artisan finds the freedom that so many others spend their lives seeking. They are free from the tyranny of the urgent, free from the weight of expectation, and free to exist entirely within the perfection of the present moment. Consider the nature of this existence. While the world outside is trapped in a fever of ambition, constantly chasing the next, the bigger, and the louder, the artisan has found a more profound interior wealth. They have learned that true satisfaction is not found in the acquisition of things, but in the quality of our attention. By dedicating their life to the polishing of a surface, they are actually refining the mirror of their own soul. If the mind is cluttered, the work reflects that clutter. If the mind is agitated, the surface will be marred. Thus, the artisan's work is a continuous, honest, and unflinching examination of their own inner state. To polish a teapot is to polish one's own conscience, to smooth out the frictions of daily life, and to achieve a state of luminous, transparent clarity that remains unmoved by the tempest of the outside world. As the sun climbs higher, flooding the workshop with an intense, unforgiving light that leaves no room for error, the artisan's state of flow deepens. The world outside the high windows ceases to exist. There is no concept of I, no concept of task, no concept of time. There is only the resistance of the porcelain, the friction of the agate, and the steady unfolding progress of the finish. It is a state of total blissful absorption where the worker and the work become indistinguishable. They have long since internalized the rhythm of the craft. It is no longer something they do, but something they are. In this state of being, they feel a profound, resonating connection to the thousands of unnamed potters, kilnsmen, and polishers who preceded them. They are not alone in this room. They are supported by the entirety of the tradition, and their own small steady efforts are a thread in a tapestry that stretches back into the deep ancient history of the earth itself. The afternoon passes, marked only by the slow, stately movement of the light across the packed earth floor. The artisan's body, though engaged in hours of consistent demanding labor, feels remarkably light, as if the very nature of their focus has buoyed them above the fatigue that might otherwise claim a lesser mind. They are nourished by the work, fed by the rhythm, and sustained by the quiet, radiant beauty of the objects they are creating. They do not look for a reward at the end of the day. They find their reward in every moment of the day. They have learned that if you treat the process with enough love, the outcome will take care of itself. And so, each teapot that finds its way to the finished rack is a masterpiece, a silent, glowing testament to the power of a life lived with integrity and an unwavering, humble devotion to the work at hand. As the final golden rays of the sun begin to fade, the artisan sets down the agate stone for the last time. The workshop falls into a profound sacred silence, a quiet so thick and resonant it feels as though the room itself is sighing in contentment. Looking at the rows of perfectly polished teapots, each one a mirror reflecting the room's stillness, the artisan realizes they have finished their masterwork, not just in clay, but in spirit. The years of repetitive motion have not worn them down. They have worn them into a shape of absolute simplicity. They walk to the door, the wooden floorboards creaking a familiar, friendly goodbye. Stepping out into the cool, stardusted night, they see the city of Jingdezhen glowing like embers in the dark, but they feel no urge to join its restless pulse. They have discovered the greatest secret of all, that peace is not a destination to be reached or a prize to be won, but a quiet, steady flame that one carries within, nurtured by the simple, honorable act of doing what one was born to do with every ounce of one's soul. The artisan walks into the dark, a shadow moving toward their home, leaving behind the workshop that held their life, their discipline, and their light, knowing that they have finally left a trace of beauty that will outlast the stars themselves.
Sleepy History Tales is created for relaxation, entertainment, and sleep purposes.
The stories shared on this channel are inspired by historical events, daily life, and real periods in history, but they may be simplified, adapted, or narrated in a calming way to enhance the listening experience. This content is not intended to be a precise academic or educational source.
While we aim to stay generally accurate, some details may be altered for storytelling flow and relaxation.
Please do not rely on this channel as a primary source for historical research or study.
By listening, you acknowledge that this content is designed to help you unwind, relax, and fall asleep. Thank you for your understanding and support.